You'll have to bear with us, I've got cold. Welcome to the County Council meeting taking place on Wednesday the 10th of December 2025. This meeting is being broadcast live to our YouTube channel. Can I extend a warm welcome to the members of the public attending this meeting today and to those viewing online. For those in attendance, you are very welcome to attend and observe proceedings. However, I request politely that you do not disrupt the meeting. One final point before we begin, can I remind everybody in the chambers to ensure that their mobile phones and all other electronic devices are switched to off or silent mode. This helps to maintain the dignity of the proceedings and avoid unnecessary distractions. So thanks for your cooperation. Before we commence with the items of business on the agenda, it is with very great sadness to formally report the death of former Durham County Councillor Ron Morrissey. Alderman Morrissey passed away on the 20th of November, and he served as a county councillor for the Sherburn electoral division from 1981 to May 2001. His funeral will take place at Durham Crematorium at 11 a.m. on 23rd of December, and the family have requested no flowers and all donations to be made to Dementia UK. So can I ask us all to stand for a moment's silence, please? Thank you. Thank you. Right, item 1 on the agenda, minutes. Can I ask a mover and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of October 2025? A mover, please.
Chair, can I move the minutes? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Quinn. A seconder?
Chair, can I second the minutes?
Thanks, Councillor Hunt. Are the minutes agreed? Right. Item 2, declarations of interest. Does any member wish to declare an interest in relation to any of the business on this agenda? No. Chairman's announcements, item 3. Colleagues, as a robust debate is part of the democratic process, and I would ask members to respect the views of the others and not to point fingers during debate. I would also remind members that it is not appropriate to shout at other councillors across the floor during debate. We have microphones which allow everyone to be heard, so please use them when speaking. And just to carry on from there, as one of my duties is obviously to go to various events, and on Thursday the 27th of November, I attended Villarreal School in Concert as part of the UK Parliament Week. The school has pupils aged 2 to 19 who have profound medical and complex learning difficulties. I visited various classes as part of the Democracy Week, and I was treated to a live debate by Rowan Class, which is a group of 16-year-olds who put forward the motion of banning mobile phones for under 16s. A very topical thing. The students provided reasoned and well-researched arguments both for and against the motion. Their arguments were delivered in a professional and respectful manner that would shame most other privileged elders. The motion to ban telephones was unanimously passed by the students. And just to remind everybody of what they were displaying and what we always hope to display, I would like to finish with a quote. No one pretends that democracy is perfect or all-wise. Indeed, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the other forms that have been tried from time to time. We are a democratic organisation, and obviously we believe in debate, so we'll carry on from there. Thank you. Item 4, the Leader's Report. Can I invite the Leader of the Council to present his report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me all right? These need a bit of an extension. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Obviously, we've got a long agenda today. Items carried over from the last meeting. So I think in summary, I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of the Council to formally thank John Pearce, our Corporate Director of Children and Young People Services, for his service to the Council, wherever you may be. As members will be aware, John is leaving us at the end of December to take up some new challenges, and he no doubt needs a well-earned rest. So do I, actually, Darren. John joined the Council in 2019 from South Tyneside and has led the Council's services to be recognised as outstanding in the latest Ofsted assessment. Whilst I haven't had a long time to get to know John, it is clear he's been very professional and dedicated. To be honest, he's a fountain of knowledge, and it's impressive how detailed and how much knowledge he's going to take with him. It's a bit of a shame, actually, but I'm sure we'll see him back in some sort of consultant capacity. That's off script, by the way. So whilst having a long time to get to know John, it's clear he's a very professional, dedicated officer, and I would like to pass on the best wishes of the Council to John as he embarks on the next stage of his career. And Chair, I know other group leaders perhaps who have worked with John may also wish to speak, but before I close, as this is the last meeting of Council before the end of the year, can I take this opportunity to wish everyone, almost everyone, and their families a happy Christmas and a very best wishes for 2026. Thank you, Chairman.
Before I invite members to ask any questions on the report that was put forward, I'll give the opportunity to the group leaders to say a few words about John Pearce, starting with Councillor Amanda Hopgood.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to say a huge thank you to John. John will be a huge loss to Durham County Council. His legacy is evident in that when he came to the council, we were a council that required improvements to our children's services, and he leaves it outstanding. A couple of weeks ago, I had the honour and the privilege to be a keynote speaker at the NCAS conference in Bournemouth, and I lost count of the number of people in the sector who came up to me to tell me how brilliant and wonderful John Pearce is, and what a huge loss he'll be to County Durham. Our loss will be someone else's gain, ultimately, and I do hope that our paths will cross again in some capacity. Not only does the person who replaces him have big boots to fill in terms of performance and results, but also in terms of their compassion, dedication and commitment to always having the interests and well-being of young people at the heart of everything he does. So thank you, John.
Thanks, Councillor Hopgood. I now call on Councillor John Shuttleworth to speak if he wishes.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I just want to wish John and all our group likes to wish John all the very best for the future. He's been quite inspirational since he came. He's had an open door policy. He's been a good person for the council. I'm really sorry he's leaving, but I wish you well, John.
Thanks very much, John Shuttleworth. Councillor Mr. Cruitt, Rob Cruitt.
Thank you, Chair, and my thanks on behalf of the Labour Group go to John as well. He's going to be a huge miss to this local authority because his reputation isn't just across this county, it's not just regional wide, it's national. You know, he has a very strong reputation across the country for his work in children's services. The accolades have already been made and I don't intend to repeat them, but I would wish John all the best for the future. He's not just a fantastic director, and he hasn't just served this county fantastically well, he's a genuinely nice fella as well, so I wish him all the best in future, and with a bit of luck our paths will cross at some point in the future. Thanks, Chair, and thanks, John.
Thanks, Councillor. Do any members have any questions on the report? Right. Can I ask the Council to note the report, please? We move on to item 5, which is questions from the public. 2 questions have been received today for today's meeting. I would invite the questioner to put their question to the Council, then ask the relevant portfolio holder to respond. I will take the questions in order in which they were received. There is no provision for supplementary questions and there is no debate in respect of these questions. For question 1, can I invite Ms Fotheringham to ask her question, please?
Thank you. My question, as you can see, is as follows. With respect to the TVERF contract, why are emissions trading schemes, that's the ETS, why are their costs not included in the contract gate price when we know that incinerators will be included in the UK ETS from 2028?
Thank you. Can I invite Councillor Kyle Genner, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Neighbourhoods, Environment and Police Relations, to respond to the question, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you once again, Ms Fotheringham, for your question. Thank you also to Ms Fotheringham for the emails you've sent since your question at last Council in October. I'm grateful that we can be in contact with such regularity. Given the frequency of our contact since October, I'm also grateful that my wife isn't the jealous type. You'll of course be aware that the Government have consulted on expanding the emissions trading scheme to waste, but as of now, there's nothing set in law. Despite that, in the Government's consultation response, they have confirmed that local authorities will not be expected to cover the full emissions trading scheme costs for waste, with substantial financial support likely to be offered via new burdens funding. Regardless, if implemented, the emissions trading scheme will also apply to our current waste disposal facility, with other policy adjustments made to further disincentivise less environmentally friendly options such as landfill. Ultimately, this means that the financial case for TVERF and the associated savings would remain the same, making the inclusion of the ETS scheme at this stage a fruitless endeavour. All of that aside, though, whether in 2029 or before, on current polling, there's a strong chance that the next UK government will be a reform one. There may be uncertainty about the emissions trading scheme, but here's what I am very, very certain about. If reform does win the next general election, I'll personally drive back up the M1 from Parliament with the documents, with the policy documents for the emissions trading scheme in hand, and I'll make them among the very first things the TVERF incinerates. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Genner. Question 2. Can I invite Mr McArdle to ask his question, please? Mr McArdle. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. For the TVERF, the market rate for incineration is likely to fall due to overcapacity. Future diversion of material away from incineration will also release existing capacity. The cost per tonne agreed for the TVERF contract is expected to rise. The agreed gate fee is index linked to protect Viridor from inflationary risk. Entering into a long-term waste disposal contract, including a minimum tonnage guarantee, will also benefit Viridor. Exclusivity clauses will do the same. These arrangements will all operate at the expense of local taxpayers. What is the Council doing to minimise exposure to such risks? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr McArdle. I again call on Councillor Genner, Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Neighbourhoods, Environments and Police Relations, to respond to the question, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr McArdle, for your question. You may remember, Mr McArdle, that Ms Fotheringham actually asked a similar question about capacity at full council back in October, and no doubt much of this has already been covered at the Scrutiny Committee on which you sit. In the UK, we still send around 8 million tonnes of municipal residual waste to landfill each year. Central government have made clear that landfill will rightly continue to be the most expensive way to dispose of waste. Local authorities are also under increasing pressure to deliver housing growth, which based on current government targets would potentially lead to 24% more houses being built by 2055. For both of these reasons and many others, the councils involved in procurement of TVERF are confident that there will be no issue of overcapacity. You may also remember, Mr McArdle, that in response to your question at October's council, I made reference to the new council plan and this administration's commitment to delivering value for money. You'll of course be aware that the new administration spent a great deal of time deeply scrutinising the options available, making clear in public multiple times that we weren't happy and expected better value for money. That happened. The current offer for TVRF offers substantial savings and substantial protections when compared to the other options and when compared to the previous offers presented, even with factors like minimum tonnage and increased recycling rates accounted for. Those savings have again been widely publicised. With regard to the point on inflation, the other options we had also had inflation built in, making this a moot point. Indeed, almost all major contracts have inflation built in, including the contracts that local councils such as ours offer when acting as the vendor. If the bidders in this case didn't link their contracts to inflation, I'd personally be asking very serious questions about their credibility. Ultimately, this means that the financial case for TVRF and the associated savings would remain the same. Oh, hang on. Wrong bit of paper. We'll go backwards one paragraph. If the bidders in this case didn't link their contracts to inflation, I'd be asking very serious questions about their credibility. In fact, Chair, if the bidders in this case didn't link their contracts to inflation, it might lead some in this chamber and across the country to wonder whether those bidders attain their economic understanding at the same place as the current Chancellor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Genner. That concludes the public questions for today's meeting. I'd like to thank those people who submitted questions and for those attending this meeting. The questions and responses will be posted on the Council's website following the meeting. Each questioner will also receive a written response following the meeting. We now move on to item 6, which are petitions. One petition is being presented today, and the petition asks the Council to reduce the speed limit on the A167 through Neville's Cross from 40 to 30 miles per hour. The petition will be presented by Susan Walker, Chair of the Neville's Cross Community Association. Ms Walker will be given 5 minutes to present the petition to the meeting, and the presentation must relate to the subject of the petition. At the conclusion of the presentation, the Leader of the Council or a relevant Cabinet portfolio holder will be afforded the opportunity to respond to the petitioner if they wish. May I invite Susan Walker to present her petition, please.
Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here on behalf of Neville's Cross Community Association and the many residents who live alongside and use the A167 every single day. Our request is simple and grounded in evidence. Reduce the speed limit on the A167 at Neville's Cross from 40 to 30 miles per hour. This stretch of road passes directly through a densely populated residential area. Within a short distance, we have 3 schools with a combined intake of around 2,500 pupils, several major student buildings, many driveways and small cul-de-sacs feeding directly onto the A167, a local shop, a pub, community facilities and well-used bus stops. We have cyclists, dog walkers, runners, families and older residents who rely on crossing this road safely. This is not a bypass, it is a community corridor and it functions like one every day. Residents repeatedly raise safety issues, especially around crossing the road. People simply do not feel safe walking or cycling here. That alone should give us pause. The legal and policy framework supports change. Under the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984, you are required to consider avoiding danger, facilitating pedestrian movement, preserving the character of roads suitable for walking and cycling, protecting residential amenities. Every one of these considerations applies directly to this stretch of the A167. And the Department of Transport's 2024 guidance is absolutely clear. 30 miles per hour is the standard limit in built-up areas with active pedestrian and cyclist use. 40 miles per hour is intended for roads with few frontages and little non-motorised activity. That definition simply does not describe Neville's Cross. And speed matters. A cyclist fatality risk almost triples when traffic speed increases from 30 to 40 miles an hour. A child hit by a vehicle of 40 miles per hour has an 80% chance of being killed. but at 30 miles per hour, there is an 80% chance of survival. International evidence shows that a modest speed reduction consistently reduces casualties. Lower speeds also reduce noise, and lower noise means better health. Research from Leicester University, Imperial College and the UK Health Security Agency links road noise to hypertension, stroke and reduced healthy life expectancy. These impacts fall hardest on residential communities like ours. And lower speeds don't eliminate pollution, but they do help. Evidence shows reductions in nitrogen dioxide and particulates when speed limits fall and traffic flow smooths out. A 30-mile-per-hour limit is a practical, proportionate measure within a wider, healthier streets approach. Now, you may hear the argument that the A16 is a dual carriageway. In reality, the only parts that resemble dual carriageway are short, signal-controlled approaches where the extra lanes have been added to prevent queuing at lights. These are not continuous high-speed dual carriageway sections. They offer no extended overtaking opportunities and do not provide the safety characteristics of a genuine dual carriageway. The road's character is overwhelmingly residential. The speed limit should reflect that lived reality. A 30-mile-an-hour limit would deliver fewer collisions and less severe injuries. A quieter, more pleasant environment for residents. Greater confidence for children and their parents walking to school. More local journeys taken on foot or bike. A safer, healthier, more cohesive community. Members, this is ultimately about putting the people of Durham first. The cyclists, the students, the school children, the parents with pushchairs, the pensioners with mobility issues. They live here. They walk these pavements. They cross this road every day.
Just 1 minute left,
Many of the
please.
drivers currently passing through at 40 miles an hour do not. We ask you to help protect the people who call Neville's Cross home. A change from 40 to 30 miles per hour is reasonable, evidence-based, consistent with national guidance and overwhelmingly supported by the local community. Please lower the speed limit. It will prevent injuries, reduce fear, and help keep our neighbourhood livable and vibrant. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. That was very good. Can I ask the council to receive the petition? And does the leader of the council or the cabinet portfolio holder wish to respond? Councillor McGuinness.
I'll respond, Chair. Cheers. On behalf of the council, I acknowledge receipt of the petition. All I'll say to Ms. Walker thank you for her words. I did reply to emails sent on the 15th of the 7th to discuss safety on this matter, and I received no response. Having consulted with our traffic team, we believe that the 40-mile-per-hour speed limit is safe and does obey the transport guidelines. As I've said, the offer stands. If they wish to contact me to discuss alternative safety arrangements or safety on that road, I'm open to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGuinness. So can I ask the council to receive the petition and make arrangements for the relevant service to respond in accordance with the petition's scheme? We now move on to item 7, which is a report from the Cabinet. May I ask the Leader of the Council to present the report, please?
Chair, I table the report as set out in the agenda and ask Council to note it.
Thank you. No questions have been received on this report, so can I ask the Council to note the report, please? Which leads us on to item 8, the mid-year review report on Treasury management for the period up to the 30th of September 2025. Can I invite the Corporate Director of Resources to present this report?
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. This report provides an overview of our Treasury management activity during the first 6 months of the current financial year and the position at the 30th of September for the Council's borrowing and investments. Consideration of this report meets the requirements of the Prudential Code, and the report includes details of performance against the various Treasury management policy and strategy prudential indicators as agreed by Council as part of the 25-26 budget setting in February. There's a table of paragraph 15 which provides a summary of our overall Treasury management position. Members will see that at the 30th of September we had total debt outstanding of 460.735 million and total cash investments of 142 million. Our net debt position therefore at the 30th of September was 318.733 million. There are comparison figures for the position at the 31st of March provided in the table, and members will see that our external borrowing at the 30th of September was £25.965 million higher than at the 1st of April, reflecting new loans taken out in the first 6 months of this year, offset by principal repayments on annuity loans. Details of the borrowing activity undertaken are set out at paragraphs 18 in the report. Cash investments at the 30th of September was £67.858 million higher than at the 1st of April, in part as a result of the new borrowing undertaken, but also reflective of the capital programme spending profile and receipt of grant in advance of expenditure being defrayed. The average interest rate paid on our external debt is now 3.40%, and there is no interest rate risk to the Council in this regard, as the interest rates are secured on that debt are fixed, and the Council does not hold any variable rate interest on its external debt. The average rate of interest earned on sums invested at the 30th of September was 4.11%. In addition to external loan debt, the Council is contractually committed to a number of long-term financing arrangements, largely related to leasing of buildings and fleet, but also include some legacy PFI scheme commitments. These are summarised at paragraphs 22 to 27. An overview of our investment activity is set out in paragraphs 28 to 31, and the table of paragraph 29 provides a breakdown of the institutions, the length of investments and the interest rates secured on those investments as at the 30th of September. All investments undertaken in the period and at the 30th of September were in line with our Treasury management strategy. In line with the requirements of the Prudential Code, the report sets out details of our performance against the various Treasury management and prudential indicators, including details of our capital expenditure and financing of our capital financing requirement in 25-26. These indicators and the position to the 30th of September are fully set out in paragraphs 32 to 34. As members will see, the Council continues to fully comply with its TM strategy and policies and is meeting the requirements of the Prudential Code. This report was considered by the Audit Committee at their meeting on the 26th of November, with members of the Audit Committee getting the assurance they needed over the management of the Council's Treasury management operations and endorsing the report for Council today. Chair, the recommendations are set out at paragraph 8 and for Council to note the Treasury management position. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr Darby. Can I invite Councillor Redmond, Vice Chair of the Audit Committee, to speak to the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to thank Paul and his team for the update on our Treasury management position, which sets out the activity during the first half of the financial year and our position to the 30th of September 2025. The Audit Committee reviewed and scrutinised this on the 26th of November, and I am satisfied that the required assurance and updates are set out clearly. I therefore ask Council to note the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does any member have any questions regarding this report? Does any member wish to speak on this report? So therefore, can I ask the Council to note the report, please? Thank you. Item 9 is the Local Council Tax Reduction Scheme for 2026-2027. Can I invite the Corporate Director of Resources to present this report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This report sets out proposals to change the Local Council Tax Reduction Scheme for working age claimants from April 2026. As members will see in the report, since April 2013, local authorities have been required to develop and administer their own Local Council Tax Reduction Scheme for working age residents. This means that there is a wide variation in approach from area to area, though the majority of councils have sought to cap the maximum level of support to working age claimants and effectively require a minimum council tax liability to be set and to be paid by all working age claimants, regardless of their financial circumstances. Pension age claimants and their CTR entitlement continues to be based on nationally set rules, based on the preceding council tax benefit system, and ensures that all local authorities follow a consistent approach when it comes to pension age claimants. And the council has no discretion over the support provided to working age claimants, so the proposals today do not impact on pension age claimants. The working age scheme here in Durham has remained largely unchanged since 2013. Support is currently uncapped, with a potential 100% of the council tax liability being covered by the scheme, leaving the resident with no bill to pay. In July, the Cabinet considered a report setting out the background to the current scheme, the options available in terms of a review of the working age scheme, and Cabinet resolved to consult on a potential range of changes to the working age scheme for next year. Public and stakeholder consultation was subsequently undertaken on those options, and on the 19th of November, the Cabinet considered the outcome of that consultation and resolved to put forward the proposals set out in this report for Council to consider. There are around 52,000 council tax reduction scheme claimants currently on the books, of which around 31,000, just over 60%, are of working age, with 84% of them receiving 100% council tax reduction and having no bill to pay currently. 81% of our working age claimants are on universal credit, and this is expected to increase to 96% at the end of the universal credit migration in 2026. The options that were consulted on across the late summer and into early autumn included proposals to introduce an income banded scheme, consideration of introducing a cap on the maximum level of support a working age claimant could receive, removal of the second adult rebate, which would be required if we move to an income banded scheme in any event, the introduction of a fixed level of non-dependent deduction, and a reduction in the capital limit in the means test calculations. These changes were aimed at simplifying the scheme and reducing its cost, both from an administrative perspective and in terms of the impact on council tax revenues. The limitations of the existing scheme are set out in some detail at the report of paragraphs 45 to 55. The options that were considered as part of this review and subsequently consulted on, together with the position across the region, are set out at paragraphs 56 to 70 in the report. The public consultation had around 1,900 responses, and the consultation feedback is summarised in the report at paragraphs 71 to 161, with further detailed consultation feedback attached as appendices to the report. The feedback generally supported the introduction of an income banded scheme, which, if adopted, would simplify the administration of the scheme, reduce printing and postage costs by reducing the amount of bills issued to claimants, making the scheme simpler to understand and mitigate against the increase in income and work following the migration to universal credit. The consultation feedback generally also supported the reduction in maximum support, so that all working age claimants are making at least a small contribution to the cost of council services. The feedback also highlighted the financial challenges, however, that residents face, and the need to balance any reduction in support with continuous support for our most financially vulnerable residents. The Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Management Board, at their meeting in July and again in November, have considered and commented on the proposals set out in this report, and their comments are summarised at paragraph 87 and 88. The report highlights the financial impact for both the council and for residents should the maximum level of support be reduced, and highlights the wider implications and mitigations considered in line with this decision, including the impact on council tax collection rates, wider welfare support, and any impact on our customer services teams. The report recommends that the council tax reduction scheme for working age claimants is moved to an income banded scheme next year, with the maximum level of support capped at 90%, that we introduce a standard non-dependent deduction of £10 per week per non-dependent, and that we introduce a maximum capital limit of £10,000, which would be a reduction from the current £16,000 limit. These changes would generate the council around £2.2 million in additional council tax income earning potential, and would see all working age claimants with a liability to pay towards their council tax, which would equate to a minimum payment of around £162 to £163 in an unparished area. Consideration has been given to ensuring adequate support is provided to those claimants who have received a terminal illness diagnosis and consequently are likely to pass away due to the disease in the next 12 months. This is in line with the Marie Curie Foundation campaign linked to their Dying in Poverty report, and as such there is a further recommendation in the report that uncapped support continues to be provided in these circumstances. The proposed changes to the Working Age Council Tax Reduction Scheme will make the scheme fairer, simpler to administer, easy to understand and see all working age residents contribute to the cost of council services. As would be expected, there is a quality impact assessment included in the report, and this shows that claimants living in Peterlee, Stanley, Bishop Auckland, Sherburn and Seaham areas are the areas most likely to be impacted by this change due to the larger proportion of the council tax reduction caseload residing in these areas. There are some case studies attached to Appendix 6 that seek to draw out the implications of these decisions. Making changes to the working age scheme or retaining the existing scheme for that matter are matters that must be considered by Council on an annual basis. The proposed change to the working age scheme set out in this report will be implemented from the 1st of April next year, and following Council approval this morning, Council officers will ensure that the appropriate system changes, training requirements and communication to those claimants affected will proceed early in the new year in advance of the council tax bills being issued for 26-27. Chair, the recommendations are set out at paragraph 27 to the report. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Can I ask for a move to the report, please?
Chair, I'll move that report. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Can I thank Paul and his team for all their work in preparing the report and for their support in undertaking the extensive consultation that has been undertaken on these proposals. Local council tax reduction provides valuable support for many financially vulnerable residents. However, the current style of the scheme and the increased speed of migration to universal credit has resulted in complexities for residents. Utilising the scheme and its administration has become unsustainable. With income and work, printing and postage costs, the amount of council tax bills the claimant receives all increasing year on year. I've seen them bills, they're an absolute nightmare to understand. The proposals before us today do not impact on pension age claimants as their scheme continues to follow nationally set rules based on the preceding council tax benefit CTB system, ensuring that all authorities follow a consistent approach and treat pensioners the same. The locally led nature of the working age scheme means that it varies from local authority to local authority. Here in Durham, the working age scheme has remained largely unchanged since 2013. However, 81% of our working age claimants are on universal credit currently, and this is expected to increase to 96% by the end of the UC migration in 2026. The current scheme was designed before the introduction of universal credit as the migration of legacy benefits onto UC has progressed. We have seen some significant impacts and, quite frankly, the current scheme is not sustainable as our administration costs will continue to increase as income and work linked to universal credit claimants continues to grow. On average, a universal credit claimant receives 11 council tax bills per year, and this is anticipate that we will see income and work exceed 250,000 work items per annum if no changes are made to the current scheme. On this basis alone, as I was quoted in the Northern Echo, a move to an income banded scheme, as many others have done, makes perfect sense, as it will simplify the scheme and reduce the administrative burdens. A reduction in the maximum level of council tax reduction support from 100% presents an opportunity to bring our scheme in line with the majority of other councils, increase the council's income generating powers and reduce the cost of scheme, whilst and perhaps most importantly, ensuring that every working age household makes a contribution to the service we provide. If the scheme remains at the current level, savings will need to be found from elsewhere in order to present a balanced budget. This administration has taken the decisions that previous administrations have shielded away from. The public consultation had 1,886 responses, a fantastic level of engagement from residents, partners and other stakeholders, and the feedback overwhelmingly supported the introduction of an income banded scheme. The consultation feedback also supported the reduction in maximum support, but also highlighted the financial challenge residents face and the need to balance any reduction in support with supporting our most financially vulnerable residents. The report highlights the financial impact for both the council and for residents should the maximum support level be reduced, and highlights the wide implications and mitigations in line with this decision, including the impact on council tax collection rates, wider welfare support and any impact on our customer services teams. Having carefully considered this consultation feedback and factoring in the Council's financial position, the Cabinet are recommending that we make changes to the local council tax reduction scheme for working age residents. That we move to an income banded model with maximum support capped at 90%, and that a standard non-dependent deduction of £10 per week for each non-dependent is introduced, with the maximum capital limit reduced from 16,000 to 10,000. The move to an income banded scheme will result in the removal of the second adult rebate also. These changes are forecast to generate around £2.2 million in additional council tax income for the council, and would see all working age residents left with at least a 10% liability to pay towards their council tax charges. In line with the review of the scheme, careful consideration is being given to ensuring that adequate support is provided to those claimants who have received a terminal diagnosis.
1 minute.
Thank you. And consequently are likely to pass away due to the disease in the following 12 months, as Paul discussed. In summary, Chair, these changes will make the scheme fairer, simpler to administer, easier to understand, and see all working age residents contribute to the cost of council services, providing some additional resources for the council in terms of helping us balance the budget next year. I would like to thank the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Management Board for their consideration. With that, Chair, I move the report and the recommendations set out at paragraph 27.
Thanks, Councillor Lyons. Can I have a seconder for this report, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. I move to second this report, and I want to pay tribute to Councillor Lyons, whose work on this has been invaluable, and the expertise and experience that she's gained through many years at Citizens Advice, not to make you sound old, Nicola, I do apologise, have been an excellent addition to this entire exercise. I would like to add my thanks as well to those of Councillor Lyons, to all of the officers who have been involved in the review of the LCTRS scheme and who attended many consultation events around the county to explain the proposed changes and analyse the feedback in order to prepare the report that we have before us today. It's all about providing a fair, efficient and effective system of support that's vital to our residents, and the changes proposed not only deliver that, but also reflect the current state of the welfare benefits system. As has been said already, the working age scheme here in Durham has remained largely unchanged since 2013. Now, 2013, a wee while ago now, there were lots of things different than today. The political reality, the landscape has changed enormously. One Direction topped the charts in 2013. The Liberal Democrats were in government. They were relevant, my friends. As I say, a lot has changed since 2013, and we've got to move with the times. In that time, the majority of working age claimants have moved on to universal credit. An expedited rollout of that has been brought forward, and that's led to our current scheme being overcomplicated and requiring excess administration at a time when neither the council nor our residents can afford that to be the case. Sending out more bills that makes, you know, that scene from Harry Potter when all the letters come through the chimney? That's what it looks like, my friends, for some of our residents. It's an absurdity, and it needs to change, and it will change.
1 minute.
We received a range of views during the consultation, but the overriding message, my friends, from the public was totally clear. In fact, they make us look like lily-livered liberals, the public out there did. Everyone should be contributing to the services that they use, was the overarching message. The feedback indicated that many respondents wanted us to go further and faster, more in line, actually, dare I say, with Lib Dem authorities and Labour authorities in other parts of the country. But we decided that that would be too extreme a path. The introduction of a cap of 90% brings us in line with the majority of other councils, something that the previous administration failed to do, and generates additional council tax revenues that will be vital to help us meet the financial challenges that we face. There are significant challenges, and let us tell you, we're waiting with bated breath for Labour's local government finance settlement next week. Paul Darby's not going to have a Christmas. He's going to be sat over his turkey with a spreadsheet. I fully support the other changes to the scheme and reduction of the capital to £10,000, and with that, Chair, I second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Does any member have any questions regarding this report? Does any member wish to speak? Sorry. Sorry, Councillor Crute.
Thank you, Chair. I did have a question of Paul Darby, but there are comments I would like to make as well. So are you opening debate now, or are you taking questions first?
It's questions first, and then we'll open it up after that. Any questions?
That's fine. On page 60, section 5, Paul, it says that in recent years there's been a trend of councils reducing the cap in place, pretty much like we're being asked to do this morning, but then moving back towards providing 100% coverage. Now, that word trend concerns me a little bit, because it looks as though some of the councils have tipped the toe in the water to see if it works. It looks like this system doesn't work, and it looks like we're swimming against the tide if we're making these moves now. What reasons did those councils who performed a U-turn give for doing that, and were there any costs incurred, Paul?
Chair, is it okay? So I haven't looked into the detailed reasons of why they there's 3 councils in our region who did cap their support to working age claimants. So Newcastle, Sunderland and Stockton started out in 2013 by capping the level of support and have subsequently moved back to 100%. I haven't reviewed those reports to sort of look at the rationale and the reasons for why they took those decisions. But in terms of, there would have been cost implications, because moving back to 100% support impacts on the tax base and therefore would have reduced the council tax raising powers of those 3 councils as a consequence of those decisions.
Thank you. Councillor Bellingham, I understand, is it a question or is it just wish to speak?
It's actually a question.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to echo the sentiments of Councillor Grimes with all the hard work and everything that's been put into this scheme. It's been going on for months and there has been a lot of dedication from the officers and the Cabinet. I've examined the data relating to this proposal and I'm shocked to learn that with almost 27,000 households in County Durham, those of working age not paying 1 penny piece towards council tax. This means nothing towards police, nothing towards fire, refuse collection, highways maintenance, clean and green, etc., etc. I could go on
Councillor,
and on.
a question.
Yeah. So, as the cost of social care has spiralled out of control, and we still need to protect those, the most vulnerable, why was the decision made to cap assistance allowance at 90%, when authorities such as North Tyneside, Darlington, Redcar and Cleveland have opted for a reduced percentage for their schemes? Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's ultimately it was a cabinet decision, a political decision on sort of where to sort of pitch the maximum level of support. The cabinet carefully reflected on, consulted on a wide range of options, including sort of capping the support at 75%. All those options were consulted on. The feedback from the consultation was included in the report to Cabinet on the 19th of November. And I think, as sort of Councillor Grimes picked up in second in the report, there was a balanced decision by the Cabinet based on the consultation feedback and the impacts that moving from 100% to a 75% cap would have, and that the balanced decision was broadly the 90% is broadly where most authorities are, so that was the issues that impacted on that decision. But ultimately it is a political choice, and it was the executive's decision to sort of pitch it at sort of 90% cap, or recommend to council that you agree to 90% cap, I should say.
Thank you. Do we have any questions before we move on to wish to speak? Any questions? Sorry, I thought that was going to be a question. Do we have any members who wish to speak on the report? Councillor Mark Wilkes.
Good morning, Chair. I don't think anyone disputes the part of this report which reduces bill changes for people. We supported bringing this forward with officers last year. bringing in an income-based scheme now does obviously make sense now that so many people have moved to universal credit. However, I must move an amendment which I'm hoping the officers will display, which is to remove the 90% council tax line and retain the 100% council tax relief. For over a decade, the council has stood by the poorest residents in this county, making sure that those who cannot pay don't pay. It didn't matter who was running the administration or who was in the administration, we did this. We did this for a number of reasons. First and foremost, taxing somebody who doesn't have any money to pay it doesn't work and it's immoral. Secondly, it results in hundreds, possibly thousands of people ending up in arrears with the additional stress that puts onto those residents and their families, and it creates a whole raft of other negative consequences. It's simply illogical to try and squeeze money out of somebody who doesn't have any, and it's simply immoral to try and tax people up to £400 more in 1 year. People who can't afford it. It's already hard for people paying bills. Cabinet's plan will make that even harder for some of the most vulnerable residents. And I think we heard from a Reform member who wants to hit the poorest with an even bigger tax hike, potentially. Sounds like a right-wing Tory policy. Reform want to hit the poorest even harder. I can't support this, so I'll move the amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll formally second the amendment and reserve the right to speak until the end of the debate.
Thank you. Councillor Crude, I understand you're next to speak, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I had intended to speak on the report itself, but since there's been an amendment put forward, I'll speak in support of the amendment because it's pretty much the same thing. And those concerns remain. You know, I mentioned the concerns I had earlier about this trend of local authorities trying this out. It doesn't seem to have worked for them, so it's not tried and it's not tested. And that's from the director himself. And, you know, I have concerns about that. We've been told to look at some of the responses from the consultation. If you look at the County Durham Association of Citizens Advice Bureaus, I think they're called that now, they have real misgivings about the proposed changes here. We can't support that. You know, what we do in here is bringing people into a council tax regime who've never paid council tax before. There's a reason for that, and it chimes with what Councillor Grimes has been saying. Things have changed that much, but the impact of grind and poverty is exactly the same today as it was in 2013. That's never changed, and we're not going to change it by bringing people into the council tax regime who simply can't afford to pay it. It's not going to benefit them, it won't benefit the council because it won't bring that increased revenue in. It'll cost the council in increased collection fees, because that was one of the points raised at the management board. While I'm on my feet, Chair, I would make one clarification. It does say in section 80, on page 80, that the management board endorsed the recommendations in the report. It should be clear about that we accepted the recommendation in the management board's report, which was to note the comments. There was no move at the management board to accept the cabinet's recommendations or the recommendations that are put forward this morning in this report. So we'll be standing against this, and we would urge every single member of Reform to look at the promises you made to the electorate in May, where you said you would reduce council tax, and in many
1 minute, Councillor.
bring it to 0%. And here we are doing the exact opposite. We're attacking the most vulnerable people in this county, and we've got to note, mind, this has a disproportionate effect on women and disabled people. We won't be supporting this, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Crude. Councillor Lyons, please. Councillor Lyons. Chris Lyons.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm over here.
I was wondering where you were. Thank you.
I'm speaking in favour of the amendment, actually, and supporting what Councillors Wilkes and Croot have said. I mean, this council can rightly be proud of the support that it has provided to the poorest in our county for many years, and the local council tax reduction scheme is a critical element of that. And sustaining no cap for those who need it most has somewhat limited the financial stress faced by thousands of people in our county. And yes, things have changed since 2013, and we've gone into an acute cost of living crisis, which has sustained and has continued. Indeed, I heard testimony from County Durham about this on national radio on the 5th of September. In a segment on BBC Radio 5 Live, a contributor stated, and I quote verbatim, "My residents in County Durham just want to be able to live a comfortable life. Right now, people are struggling really quite intensely." I had to agree with that contributor, who was Councillor Darren Grimes, the Deputy Leader of Durham County Council. I know that the Council faces extremely difficult decisions in an extremely difficult financial circumstance, but this change will cause most harm to the most vulnerable, exactly these people, those people who are, to quote again, struggling really quite intensely. On a practical level, those affected will simply be unable to find the money. So collecting it will prove very difficult for this council, very challenging, and therefore the administrative cost savings that have been mooted in this report won't happen anyway, and I think that's supported by some of the testimony that, that Councillor Crew referred to. And therefore I cannot support the main proposal, but I certainly support the amendment, and I urge everyone else to do the same. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Calling Councillor Stephen Boron.
Thank you, Chair. Going by the consultation we had, why is it only us on this side of this chamber, on the side of Alarmcroft, Britain? We are here for the people, nothing else. Who's spoken?
Thank you, Councillor.
Chair, if I could just interject for 1 second. Councillor Lyons, you registered to speak, but you're not allowed to speak on the amendment debate. You will get a right of reply at the end, so we will bring you back in at the relevant time.
Councillor Malloy, Peter Malloy.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Peter Malloy, Spennymoor Division. I'll be speaking to oppose the amendments, and the reasons are, during the last administration, we were fully well aware that the 100% reduction was unsustainable. Paul Darby, on many occasions, many briefings, highlighted the situation, and obviously it would be a political decision for us to make. But we knew this day was coming. Also, we've just had the budget, and people on welfare are going to have a very good increase compared to working people come April. Also, with the removal of the two-child cap and child benefits. Also, it's believed that poly marriages will also be financially benefited as well. And also, it was Keir Starmer in the run-up to the general election who said not a penny more on council tax as well. So that's that promise broken. And the Labour colleagues in here should also remember that as well. I'm not sticking up for reform with regards to the promises they allegedly made or didn't make, but if people from other political parties know that their leaders have been contradictory, they should bear that in mind as well. And also, I'm of the belief that everyone should contribute in some way. Why should it always be left to the hard-working people who struggle, go out to work? This society has made it that both parents have to go out to work if they want a decent living. Why should people, thank you. Why should people who can work but refuse to choose benefits as a career option It is morally wrong. So with me opposing this, I'm in support of the masses, which is mainly the working people. Thank you, Chair.
That's Councillor Malloy. I call on Councillor Andrew Husband.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to raise a few points. Now, obviously, I naturally oppose the amendment. This is really uncomfortable, this. I mean, the landscape has changed since 2013. You know, these councils who made these brave, bold decisions to reverse U-turn, call it what you want. Most Labour councils in government are obviously used to U-turn, so that's probably half the motivation. However, they're facing bankruptcy. That's the reality of local government. I mean, 90% reduction on your council tax is a very generous offer compared to most councils in the area nationally. Okay, we're being, you know, we could have went 75%. We represent the public consultation. The public want to see households contributing towards the services we provide. So we are chasing fair funding. I think everyone knows that. And without fair funding, councils face tough decisions. They potentially face emergency measures. When emergency measures kick in, local government no longer is local government. It's overtaken by a central government. You know, a Labour control of double-digit council tax increases across the region is the outlook of falling into emergency measures. The most financially dependent residents, well, that myth is already being quashed. Support will be available. New funding in place for the worse off, as previously portrayed. Now, I mean, there's a question. Would you say that folk with £16,000 or more in the bank should be getting free council tax? Because that's essentially the scheme that we're working with. People in that position claiming free council tax. And I want to raise a point of order as well. You know, as leader of the council, I did not say we'd rock up on day one and suddenly everyone's going to get a council tax reduction. That's for the birds. Yes, we're under the bonnet. And the reality is we are making savings. We're stopping the rot. We're reducing the £1 billion of borrowing commitments that's you know, essentially inherited with this council. We are talking to overseas investors. We are looking at investing in a future where the tax burden is not falling on the worst off or the working people of County Durham. We want to grow our way out of this mess. But I do echo Councillor Malloy's point. We're talking about, you know, £3 per week in most cases as an increase. Welfare should be a safety net, not a lifestyle choice.
Thank you. Councillor Quinn.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I find it quite ironic that we have members saying we shouldn't reduce the cap. However, this is not actually what the public want. Quite the contrary, actually. The public would prefer we reduced it even more. Too often, the politicians have the we know best attitude, Chair. Take this current government, for example, and digital ID. I'm struggling to find absolutely anybody that thinks that this is a good idea. However, they press on. Chair, we on this side of the chamber, we listen to the public. The public have made it absolutely clear they support the cap being reduced. Chair, I'm totally against the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn. Councillor, you've raised your hand. I assume your machine's not working, is it?
Yeah.
Please.
I would like to state that I'll be voting against the amendment because I've actually heard the voice of the people that was expressed in the consultation. We did the consultation to gauge public opinion, and public opinion has said yes to reduce to this change. I'll be voting in support of the public in order to vote against the amendment for that reason.
Thank you, Councillor. I call on Councillor Darren Grimes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to very briefly come back to some of the points that were made. I would gently suggest to Councillor Croot that actually if residents in County Durham are worse off, and I stand as someone that was brought up in a single-parent household on a council estate in Stanley. I know exactly what it's like to gan with nowt as a bairn. But the facts of the matter are against Mr Crute, because actually, my friends, I point to net zero. I point to the increases in national insurance, creating job losses in our very county. I point to so many ways, my friends, in which it is this Labour government that is making the lives of County Durham's residents thoroughly miserable. So I am amazed by the brass neck to suggest it is reform that is guilty of that very crime. Deindustrialisation, taking away winter fuel payments, farmers being taxed out of their family farms. Was that reform, my friends? I ask you that question now. No. We, on this side of the chamber, believe in the people's priorities, and actually for Alarm Clock Britain, everybody contributing was something that they wanted, and we will deliver. Now, Councillor Lyons said there that actually I said on Radio 5, I'm delighted to know he's such an avid listener of mine. But he said, you know, that I stood up and said that my residents just want to be able to get on with life. Aye, they do. They do. They definitely do. But there is no way in hell that this Labour government is allowing them to do that. Only a Reform government will. So I hope Councillor Lyons will be joining me at the next general election to vote for Reform UK. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Martin, you have a right to speak because nobody else wants to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to finish off by talking about one of the misconceptions that's been raised in this debate about the fact that if you don't pay council tax, you are not contributing to council services. 100% of the council's funding and finances receive is not completely from council tax. It is from the other forms of the other forms of taxation, income tax, national insurance, VAT. And we keep forgetting that some of the poorest in society pay a larger proportion of their incomes in some of these forms of taxation, such as VAT. The point I'm trying to make here, Chair, is just because somebody isn't paying council tax does not mean that they are not significantly paying a proportion, a higher proportion. So, for example, such as myself, who is a bit more that does not live hand to mouth on a day-to-day basis, does not need to spend 100% of my income in going to the shops. I pay a proportion of my income less than that. We need to remember that the poorest in society still pay forms of taxation. It may not be the same forms of taxation as, say, people such as ourselves that don't live hand to mouth and every day, but they are still contributing to society. All right? Council tax is an incredibly unproportional, unfair form of taxation that really needs some major reform. But it doesn't seem that any government, and by the way, I'll hold the hands up and say Lib Dems failed to do this in government as well, have failed to kind of reform this type of taxation. In the fact that it is this unfair form of taxation, I personally believe that we should act to liberate the poorest in society from paying it, who have absolutely nothing and who are already contributing some of their small sums of earnings in taxation, contributing to society. That is why I'm in favour of this amendment. Members, back the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lyons, you have a right of reply before we consider what's going to happen next.
Thanks, Chair. It is clear here at Reform in Durham, we consult, we listen, and we should deliver. Nearly 1,900 responses from the residents of County Durham sent their responses in. One of the biggest responses council has ever received. It's simple. We need a simple, fairer system that benefits everyone, not just those on welfare benefits. In-work poverty is on the rise, and thank you to our recent budget, that's definitely going to go further. We are currently looking at a new poverty strategy which will ensure all can get support when they need it. And I agree with Pete Malloy. £5,310 a year, people will be better off due to the two-child limit increase for 1,958 residents. That's not what we're asking them to pay. I would definitely oppose the amendment and go with the 90%. Everybody needs to pay something in County Durham. It's what people voted for in the consultation. It's what they want. They wanted 75%. We've been fair, done it at 90. A lot of other local authorities cap at £6,000, we're looking at £10,000. We are being fair and we are being better. I would definitely vote against the amendment.
Thanks, Councillor Lyons.
Chair will take a vote on the amendment. So
Can we go to a name vote, please, Chair?
Obviously we need 10 to support that.
10 supporters for a name vote, please.
Yeah, okay, so this will be a named vote. How members vote will be recorded in the minutes. We will also flick through it on the screen. So just to confirm, we're voting on the amendment as proposed by Councillor Wilkes, which was on the screen. It's been circulated by email as well. On your voting handsets, it will be 1 to vote in favour of that amendment, 2 to vote against the amendment, and 3 to abstain. If you press the wrong button, you press the right button, that will correct the vote. And if any members have any issues with their voting handsets, if they could stick their hands in the air, and somebody from Committee Services will come and assist. I'll let you know when the vote is open. The vote's open. And we'll close the vote, Chair.
Right, the result for the amendment is 25, against is 58, with 1 abstention. The amendment failed. The amendment failed. Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Just want me to pause for a minute while people... Chair?
Oh, yeah, we'll wait a second. Be right, ready, Councillor Martin? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, let me just get my screen up properly. All right, members, I'm going to propose another amendment to this. Okay, so Chair, I move an amendment to the proposed local council tax reduction policy to change the capital allowance from £10,000 to £16,000. Now, it's very disappointing what has just come, and that's the main crux of the argument about what we're discussing today. But I want to put forward this amendment is trying to make bad policy a little bit less worse, okay? Now, why do I want to change a subsection of a policy that only actually affects a minute percentage of our population? The significant message it sends to our community that it is a positive life choice to have savings. It doesn't matter whether someone is saving 1,000, 100 or £1 a month, putting any sum of money aside makes individuals more financially resilient, leading to less hardship. We should be sending a message to residents, particularly those of the least. If you make this positive life choice, as a council, we will support you. Instead, we are telling residents it is pointless having savings. When times are hard, you need to completely rely on the state to support you. Secondly, Durham County Council is creating a sort of hypocritical situation here, where that residents up to £16,000 worth of savings will receive some form of universal credit support, but we won't be supporting them in any way, shape or form with their council tax. We are, in essence, deciding to be crueler than a system that is expected to be a minimum standard of living. Thirdly, everyone is forgetting that the £16,000 figure has been fixed for circa more than 15 years. It's subjecting individuals to fiscal drag. By being fixed every year, the value of that £16,000 has already been decreasing due to inflationary pressures. By keeping it static, you're already reducing its value without the need to take drastic action, particularly the horrific inflation we've all suffered recently. I want to be really clear here before anyone starts misquoting me. I am not saying that multi-millionaires should be getting council tax support. I don't have £16,000 in my bank account. I wish I did. £16,000 is a lot of money for me and my family. But despite this, I still firmly believe that as a society, we should be doing more to champion the positive benefits of having a personal financial cushion. But there does need to be a limit, and reducing that limit when it has been frozen for so long is wrong. Let's not forget, savers had contributed through taxation to society on this money already. Now they've fallen on hard times, we're withholding support, saying you must strip yourself of your hard-earned assets before we'll think about giving you some support. Councillor, back the amendment, please.
Thanks for that, Councillor. Do we have a seconder?
Thank you, Chair. I'll second the amendment and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. Councillor Hope, I understand you wish to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I'm totally opposed to Councillor Martin's amendment there. I don't know if anybody in here has got 10 or 16 grand hidden away in the bank. I certainly haven't. We need to be on the side of the public consultation, and we need to go with what they have asked for. So I urge members to vote against Councillor Martin's amendment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Husband.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I just want to make an obvious, observation here. If you can afford to save up £16,000 or more, surely you can afford £3 a week. Just putting it out there. I mean, and what confuses me even more is the integrity of Councillor Martin. One minute he's pleased he's doing so well and he's well off. The next minute he's asking his local residents for £10 so he can plead poverty and produce a leaflet. And here we are again, he's back in the poverty world. I am confused.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Sexton.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't going to speak. I wasn't expecting another amendment to come. I'm astonished that Councillor Martin talks about, people are paying into the system by VAT. We don't have to buy things necessarily that we don't need. Again, reiterate what Councillor Husband said, the benefit system is a safety net. And £3 a week is a small amount of money if you've got £10,000 or more, or £16,000 his suggestion. But I know he doesn't have a good fiscal mind anyway, because he got this wrong on his leaflet, which has been going around Chester Street area, accusing Reform of axing £640,000 from our town leisure centre. When I stood up in here a couple of years ago and pleaded with him and other so-called Chester Councils to back the leisure centre, and I told them that I had a documentation that it couldn't be refurbished because of the mechanical and electrical. That is an outright misleading statement blaming Reform. Shame on you.
Councillor. Councillor Potts. Councillor Potts, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of things I'd like to point out. One is, I think it was Councillor Wilkes who turned around and said that the previous motion was immoral. I'd like to point out that it's immoral for the Liberal Democrats to ignore the people of County Durham who've been contacted with regards to this decision. I'd also like to say it's immoral to ignore the reducing base of people who work in County Durham, who go out every day
We have continuing unemployment. It's gone up by a million people in since the last election. So we have less people in Durham who are being asked to pay more and more because we're reducing the base by asking less people to pay it. The other thing I'd like everybody in the chamber to be aware of is I sit on both the police and crime panel and the fire authority. Both of those organisations will receive extra benefits by this decision. The fire authority in Durham are looking at making cuts. The police and crime panel, the police and crime commissioner, the Labour police and crime commissioner, Joy Allen, has actually came out the police and crime panel and said we're going to lose 25% of all civilian staff. That's about 275 members of civilian staff, which will impact on policing massively in Durham. This will absolutely help both the police and the fire authority of County Durham and the people who live there.
Thank you, Councillor Potts. Councillor Stephen Greer.
Thanks, Chair. We need a council tax reduction scheme that's fair to everyone, including the people that fund it. Residents on around £16,000 a year can and should contribute something, because thousands of working families who are struggling themselves to pay council tax every month, it isn't fair to ask them to shoulder more while others contribute nothing. Other Labour and Lib Dem councils across the country have already made deeper savings in their schemes, and it's very evident. We've looked into this. Even though our consultation is actually asking for sharper savings, we've kept our approach balanced because County Durham has one of the best funded welfare support packages in the North East. This is about protecting those who truly need help while being honest about the savings the council must deliver for everyone. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Greer. Councillor Wilkes.
Like Councillor Sexton, I wasn't going to speak on this. I hear that a lot, actually, from Councillor Sexton. I wasn't going to speak on this. I just want to point out something, that any suggestion from Councillor Sexton or others that you can somehow not pay VAT perplexes me, because presumably it means you live in a tent, because there's VAT on fuel bills for starters. But I wanted to highlight something a little bit more important. There seems to be an awful lot of comment here about these vast numbers of people who've entered into this consultation. We've got 550,000 people in this county. I think you said there was 1,900 representations. Perhaps someone should go and check how many times one individual can actually enter this consultation with all the different things they've got, and then maybe clear off their computer and go on and do it again and again and again. Perhaps there wasn't actually 1,900 separate people consulting on this, and someone should check that.
Thanks, Councillor. Can I just say something? As you know, all consultations are difficult for councils. We usually have a very small group of people who wish to engage. And I would like to see actually 1,800 people I was impressed with. Normally in the low hundreds. So obviously people recognise this, but I take your point. Thank you. I call on Councillor Sean Healy, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm rather perplexed by Councillor Wilkes's comments about our decisions on this issue are immoral. Should he not rather reserve that description for his own party that under the Cameron coalition introduced austerity, charged people the bedroom tax, which led directly to suicides, and betrayed the students that voted for it by then betraying them by charging them massive loans for their education? Maybe the impact of austerity, which was enabled by the Liberal Democrats, is what is truly and utterly immoral.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kyle Genner.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to speak from the perspective of someone who grew up, like Councillor Grimes, in deep poverty. We've got a £10,000 limit that we're proposing, and Councillor Martin wants us to move to a £16,000 limit. Just for context, because I think this is really important. If you've got £10,000 in the bank and you're charging someone £3.27 a week, it would take 3,058 weeks until you hit zero. That's a hell of a safety net. To put that into further context, it's 58.8 years. That's a massive safety net already at £10,000. If we move to £16,000, 100 years, 90 years before you hit the bottom of the money that you've got in the bank, massive safety net. Obviously, everyone on this side of the chamber and probably that side of the chamber is going to be able to assume already I will be voting against this amendment, and based on that and the other arguments made, I would urge everyone else to vote against it too. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Genner. Councillor Neil, you have a right to reply.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We've heard from both sides of the argument for and against the proposed changes, as well as the new amendment tabled by my colleague, Councillor Martin. I don't think there is an argument that's needed for this. It's a moral dilemma. It's right or wrong. I put to you the simple fact that a person having £16,000 in the bank does not necessarily mean that that is proportional to their income. They may well have come into that in other ways. They may have inherited it. They may have just been very studious with their money. We should certainly not be punishing that by creating a further burden for these people, certainly not if their income is in that lower percentage. More importantly, though, there are some broken promises rearing their ugly heads now. Before May, and in fact afterwards, the Reform Party stood on a pledge of frozen council tax and waste cutting. Where are those savings now? It's not a lie, we have the leaflets to prove it. Well, Reform do claim to have made significant savings, but the numbers just don't add up. On one hand, they shout about the millions of pounds saved by their studious management on the council. On the other, they decide that the most vulnerable residents across County Durham now must foot a bill they've not been expected to pay in the past. It does concern me also that the consultation may have been open to repeated submissions and received responses from almost 2,000 people. If this is true, the integrity of the consultation is of great concern. I, on the other hand, have knocked on the doors of many thousands of people since January.
Chair, can I make a point of order?
Please.
Chair, can I ask, is there any evidence that this council is aware of that the consultation process has been tampered with?
I'm afraid, Councillor, it's got to be about what's on offer here. It's not a breach of the rules as such, and this councillor can speak out as he does, although we'll speak about this later. Carry on.
Thank you, Chair. I, on the other hand, have spoken to many thousands of people on the doorstep since January. And I think a great number of them would be incredibly disappointed by the decision, the political decision being taken by the administration. The administration were given a massive mandate by the public. They were given the trust of the electorate, and they were handed a majority worthy of that trust.
1 minute, please.
That trust was based on a promise that they have made and broken. The amendment does not go far enough. We would have wanted to see a return of the 100% cap, but I hope that the members see now that this further amendment will make bad legislation not good, but less worse. I would encourage members on both sides of the chambers to back this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lyons, you do have a right to reply if you so wish.
Right, okay. Wow, is all I'm going to say to that comment. I encouraged everyone to do the consultation. I paced the floors, went to the streets, went to all the partners, community groups, voluntary sector, and actually I really did push for everyone to do the consultation because I wanted to make sure, and we at Cabinet got that evidence, we followed it and made an informed decision based on what our residents wanted. Not manipulate the figures, not to manipulate parties or whatever else, just to make sure that we were doing what the residents wanted us to do. And I think that's a really uncalled for comment. Personally, I do think the 10k cap's fair. I absolutely categorically do. I've worked in the advice sector for many, many years and seen people come in who've been over them limits, been under them limits, and they are still contributing something. So I think them 10k limit is absolutely fair. 90% cap's fair on the banded scheme. We have got to make it fair for everyone, regardless of who you are or what you do. Everyone should be contributing to the council services. They all receive them, they should contribute. That is the fairest and simplest way this council is going to do it. I encourage you to vote against this amendment and go back to the original.
Councillor.
So thank you, Chair. So again, we'll take a vote on the amendment as proposed by Councillor Martin, which has been shown on the screen. So again, it will be 1 on your voting handsets to vote for Councillor
Can we
Martin.
go for a name vote again, please?
Again, if there's more than 10. Yes, so this vote will be a recorded vote. The way members vote will appear in the minutes and we'll flick through it on the screen in the meeting today. So yes, it is 1 to vote for the amendment proposed by Councillor Martin, 2 to vote against it, and 3 to abstain. And the vote is open. Okay, we'll close the vote.
As regards this amendment, we have 20 have voted for the amendment, 59 have voted against the amendment, and 5 have abstained. So the amendment fails. The amendment fails. Councillor Lyons, you have a right to reply before we go to the recommendations on the report.
To be honest, I think we've debated this long enough. I honestly do feel as though I have been very thorough. The Cabinet's been very thorough when I've presented them. And literally I have spent months literally gathering evidence, researching, making sure that what we were doing was fair and correct. I mean, to be honest, I even went as far as only 18 other local authorities, unitary authorities, actually give 100%. Let's be streamlined, let's be fair to our residents, and please vote on what was set out originally. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
So, Chair, will now have a vote on the recommendations.
Can I just check, Chair? Do we not have a debate on that now that the 2 motions have fallen to the amendment? Because we haven't actually had, we went straight into a motion, so we haven't actually had a discussion around the actual paper.
There was nobody registered to speak?
Because the first person registered was Councillor Wilkes, who moved the motion.
No, but there's nobody currently registered, which is why nobody is
Sorry,
registered
because
since.
you haven't opened it up to register to speak on the actual substantive paper now.
Councillor Hopgood, in the interests of fairness, if somebody wishes to speak regarding this recommendation, we will open it up to debate. Okay? So if you'd like to register, if you wish to say something, and we call on Councillor Hopgood to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to speak on this just to clarify a couple of points that had been made. There is no administration from 2013 who shied away from the difficult decision that has been claimed from across the floor. It was a decision that was made by every representative on this council from whatever party from 2013 to protect the most vulnerable people in our society. And it's a choice now that the current administration wish to make, and that is absolutely their prerogative to do so. But in doing so, there will be and I'll refer this to Councillor Grimes, you tend to like to have your name in lights. Your name will be in lights as being the member who took away this protection for the most vulnerable people in County Durham. And may I suggest that after listening to the debate today, we may want to have a look at having our next full council meeting, perhaps at the Gala Theatre, so that some people can have the stage.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Husband.
Hello, Chair. I'm back again, sorry. So, 2013, we actually said times have changed and bankruptcy looms, just to kind of, correct that statement. I think point number 2, I'm going to redirect the other side to the 22nd of July care emergency that we declared. Living in unprecedented times, we have plans afoot to stop the rot. Just to address Councillor Alex Neil, you can't build a children's home getting elected on day one, okay? You can't reset an unfair market, profiteering galore, by bringing in ethical providers, new entrants to market, competition, increasing competition, more beds, less demand, more control on day one. These are the types of problems we've inherited as we look under the bonnet. You had 4 years to sort out that problem that was building in the background as the debts accumulated to circa £1 billion of borrowing commitments. That will bankrupt this council, carrying on with heads in the sand. We are stopping the rot, just to reiterate. We're turning a corner like an oil tanker at sea. It's no handbrake turns in this job. We're going to grow our way out of this mess. 2/3 of our budget, just to clarify, is government funded. £1 billion borrowing commitments, I will reiterate. Tough decisions can be waived, for example, if Labour government give us fair funding. If Rachel Reeves hadn't increased NIC contributions, this council would be £10 million better off, and we wouldn't be having this conversation. That's £10 million in perpetuity.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wilkes.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify something. This council isn't facing bankruptcy. If it was, then we'd have had a Section 151 officer telling us those exact facts. You can borrow money so long as you can actually pay it back, and that's what the borrowing was that was done. And I don't think it's appropriate. And I would actually prefer for the officer perhaps to just confirm this council is not actually facing bankruptcy.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkes.
Councillor Wilkes, if as the Section 151 officer of the Council, I believed we were in that situation, I would issue what's called a Section 114 notice to inform members that we were in such a position and we'd be approaching the government for exceptional financial support, which is the leader sort of mentioned. If we get into that territory, would require us to increase council tax, borrow our way out of a sort of a Section 114 position. But as we stand today, we are not in Section 114 territory. I believe the leader is referring to if our position does not change over the next sort of 4 years, we will get into that territory in a number of years' time.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul.
And for clarity, that is not related to borrowing, that is related to the revenue situation and the lack of government funding for revenue.
Yeah, just to clarify one thing, Councillor Wilkes, this is actually a debate about this council tax reduction. So I appreciate what you're saying, but thanks very much. And I'll call on Councillor Malloy if you'd like to speak, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to seek the possibility of moving to the vote. I think we've exhausted all the arguments. We've had 2 amendments that's both failed, and it's just coming down to now, I feel, one administration being critical of the other previous administration and vice versa, and that's, let's stick with the task in hand and get this motion dealt with. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Malloy. Councillor Lyons, if you wish to speak before we put it open to the vote.
I literally just want to say that when you say the most vulnerable, it now includes working people. It does include working people. It never used to. And I think we've got to be fair for everybody, and that includes making sure everybody pays. Let's go to the vote.
Thank you.
So thank you, Chair. So we'll now take a vote on the recommendations that are set out in the report. If you want to vote in favour of those recommendations as set out, press 1. If you wish to vote against the recommendations in the report, press 2. And if you wish to abstain, please press 3. The vote is open. We'll close the vote.
Right. As regards the local council tax reduction scheme, there are 58 for, 26 against and no abstentions. So the recommendations are approved. Thank you. Right. Item 10, the Director of Public Health's Annual Report of 2025. May I invite the Director of Public Health to present the report.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. Many of you will be aware that as the Director of Public Health, I need to produce an annual report, which the Cabinet and then the Council publish. This is part of the statutory duties of the local authority, and in this year's report, I did a little bit of looking back and reiterating the statutory responsibilities of the Director of Public Health, which are outlined, and they are delivered through a public health grant, which we receive into the authority for the delivery of public health interventions, many of which are mandated for us to deliver. This year's report is focused on healthier futures, our ambitions and actions. And what we've done, something a little bit different this year, is to put that to an animation. So fingers crossed that the technology works, and we've got a short animation for you to watch. And then obviously I will look at the recommendation and take questions. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
With many other partners across the Council, including the NHS, Durham University, our VCSE organisations and most importantly our communities. We want every resident to be born, live, work and age in good health in connected and resilient communities. Sadly, too many people live years in poor health. Boys born today may spend 20 years in poor health and girls 24. That's unfair and avoidable. Our health is shaped by where we live, how we live and the care we receive. 45% is influenced by wider factors like where we live and our income, 40% by our lifestyle and behaviour, and 15% by health and care services. We use evidence and community insight to help us understand the facts and consider what we can do to help change. Our joint strategic needs and assets assessment for GSNAA and our new health and wellbeing survey helps us to understand what life is really like for our residents and identify where we need to support change. And through REACH County Durham, we're putting research into action with community at the heart of decision making. Our insights show us a number of key facts about our population. County Durham 65 years plus population is actually projected to increase by 20.7% by 2032, while our younger age population is projected to decrease by 6.2%. 77% of residents reported their health being good or very good, which is less than the England average, while 8% reported bad or very bad compared to the England average of 5%. By 2040, 1 in 5 adults may live with a major illness, and this is worse in our area
Thank you, Chair. And the recommendation is set out in paragraph 13, which is for Council to receive the Director of Public Health Annual Report 2025.
Thank you. Can I invite Councillor Brown, the Cabinet Portfolio Holder for Adult and Health Services, to speak to the report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And I would like to thank the Director of Public Health and her team for producing an excellent independent report. Now, Amanda has delivered a totally different way of her report. The animation, which I think is a great way of getting across to everybody what's in the report. It's a very informative and interesting way of doing the summary. If you haven't already read the report, hopefully that has whetted your appetite to go and read it and get involved in public health and communicate with Amanda. The 6 ambitions are challenging. However, they set a clear direction and outline of what has already happened during 2025 to bring about the change on there. While these 10-year ambitions, they will be closely monitored to identify year-on-year changes. And I look forward to future annual reports where progress will be shared with Council, and I propose that Council agrees to receive this report and this unique way of doing it. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Does any member have any questions regarding this report? Councillor Burrs.
Thank you. What I would really like to request is for next year's report to contain a lot more in the way of what I would regard as nitty-gritty detail as to exactly how this department of the council, if that's what it is, functions. I mean, for example, I've got no understanding, this may be my fault, but does Amanda, presumably she has staff. I've got no idea. Is that 3 members of staff? Is it 100? What is the cost? What is the budget of the health department? And how much of that budget comes from central government as opposed to local government taxpayers?
I ask Councillor Burris to talk to me afterwards, because we're here to receive the report rather than that, and I don't think those questions are about the report.
Well,
Thank you.
I can do, but I think it's reasonable to make my point in public that I have read the report, actually, but not in great detail, but I have read it this morning. And I come away from it really puzzled as to... I don't make this as a criticism. I insist. I'm seeking information. I would, for example, there are laudable objectives of reducing smoking and reducing obesity, to take simple examples. And there's a plan to do it over 10 years. But I would just like to know in detailed terms how you intend to go about that. Are you going to walk down the streets and see people smoking and say, you realise that's not a good idea for you? I'd just like to understand quite what you're going to do over the next 10 years and how much of it is a cost on the taxpayer, especially the local government taxpayer. And as I say, there may not be time to do that today, but could that be taken into account for next year's report is what I'm requesting.
Thanks for that, Councillor. Can I make a suggestion? But it might pay you to actually speak to the officer after the event and arrange for an appointment so you can discuss this. Thank you. Councillor Potts.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm probably going to get told off as well. Man was, obviously I've looked at the report with regards to some details, and I was assuming a report would tell you how we've done over the last few years to see how we're improving, not just ambitions going forward. And there isn't a great deal there. One of the major complaints I get from my area is about oral health, which I know you mentioned on page 5, but then there's no details, you know, there's no places for people in our constituencies, for new NHS places, those type of things. And I was hoping to find some of that detail in the report.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Potts. It's a very fair question, and obviously The report has to be, it is an independent report, so I can choose where to focus, and it shows on those key ambitions which could make a real difference to people's health and well-being. Some of them have got the trajectories to show where we've been to date and how we need to go further. But obviously there's a huge amount of work that sits outside of this report as well, so more than happy to have that discussion similar to the discussion with Councillor Burrows, but also point you in the direction of the work in relation to oral health promotion and what we're responsible for as a local authority in terms of oral health, but also what the NHS responsibilities are. And certainly there's just been a report through to scrutiny, so there's quite a lot of detail, and more than happy to talk that through in more detail, Councillor Potts.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak regarding this report? Right, so the Chairman will ask the Council to receive the annual report. Do you receive and accept it? Right, obviously because we've been here quite a while, I'm going to suggest a comfort break of just a maximum 5 minutes, and that the meeting be extended to 1 p.m. Do I have a seconder for this?
I second that, Chair.
Right. I would like to extend the meeting to 1 p.m. if possible, and do the members agree to that? Right, thank you. So a 5-minute comfort break for anybody who needs it. Thank you. which is the appointment of town and parish co-opted members to the Standards Committee. Can I invite the Deputy Monitoring Officer to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So, as part of the Standards Committee's terms of reference, there are 2 seats for town and parish councillors to be co-opted to. These positions are non-voting, but are considered important in representing the views of the 104 local councils in our county on the committee. Since the elections in May, these 2 seats have been vacant. In June of this year, the Director of Legal and Democratic Services requested that the County Durham Association of Local Councils, or CDALC, seek expressions of interest for the vacancies in accordance with the process agreed by the Standards Committee at its meetings on the 11th of March and the 5th of December in 2022. CDALC received 8 applications and its Executive Committee met on the 2nd of October to consider them. At this meeting, it resolved to nominate Councillor Susan Walker of the City of Durham Parish Council and Councillor John Hurst of Brandon and Byshottles Parish Council. Further information about Councillors Walker and Hurst is available at paragraph 14 and 15 of the report. At its meeting on the 1st of December, the Standards Committee resolved to recommend these appointments to County Council today. The recommendation, Chair, is at paragraph 8.
Thank you. Can I ask for a mover on this report, please?
Yes, Chair. I'm Councillor Kate Rowland, and the non-voting co-opted members represents the voice of all town and parish councils across the county, 104 parish councils on the Standards Committee. It is therefore important that the nomination process for these positions is undertaken by the County Durham Association of Local Councils on behalf of their members. I am pleased to note that the call for nominations received a positive response, and the Standards Committee was happy to recommend Council and appoint of Councillors Susan Walker and John Hurst as the chosen Town and Parish Council representatives. I therefore move the recommendations.
Thanks, Councillor. Do we have a seconder to this report?
Chair, I'm County Councillor Ian Catchpole. I'm happy to second the recommendations.
Thank you. Do we have any questions regarding this report? No? Does any member wish to speak on this report? So therefore, can I ask the Council to agree to the appointments, please? Thanks very much. We're moving on to item 12, the appointment of chairs, vice chairs of committee subcommittees. Can I have nominations for the appointment of chairs and vice chairs on the committees and subcommittees listed on the agenda, please?
Can I nominate Councillor Kenny Hall for the Economic and Enterprise Scrutiny Committee for Vice Chair, please?
If you just wait one moment, Councillor. It's Councillor Lyons first. Thank you.
Chair, can I nominate those that should be on your screen, please? And can I ask that we vote for them in block to save time? Thank you.
So the nominations will require a seconder. Do we have a seconder for all the nominations, please?
Chair, I'd like to second that.
So, before we open it up, are there any other nominations for these positions? Okay. So I ask the Council to agree to these nominations. Do they agree? Right, thanks very much. Thanks for that. Item 13, motions on notice. Okay. James.
Thank you, Chair. So, as usual, the usual rules of debate apply for these items. Movers of motions have 5 minutes. All of the speakers have 3. Members may only speak once on a motion, other than the mover, who is entitled to a 3-minute right of reply. If an amendment is moved and seconded, the debate moves on to the proposed amendment, and any member may speak again, save for the mover of the original motion. The Constitution allows for the debate on motions to last for 30 minutes. I will inform Council when there are 15 minutes remaining, at which stage no further registrations to speak on that particular motion will be allowed. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I'd like to move a motion without notice, please.
Chair, in accordance with the Council Procedure Rule 11, I move a motion without notice to extend the time allowed for motions beyond 30 minutes. Thank you. I need a seconder for that.
Chair, I'm happy to second that.
How long do you want to extend it for, Councillor Quinn, or do you want to take the limit off and just be subject to the 1 p.m. limit of the meeting?
We'll do 30 minutes and then see how we get on. So extend it for 30 minutes.
That'll take us past the 1 p.m. deadline.
Yeah.
So you also want to extend the length?
Extend the length of the meeting as well, yes, Chair.
So just to clarify, so what you're saying is effectively at 1 p.m. there will be an extension past that 1 p.m.
Yes, Chair. It'll extend the meeting and extend the time for motions past 1 p.m.
Sorry, Councillor Quinn, just going to be really, really clear. So instead of 30 minutes for motions, you want 60 minutes for motions?
No, I said 30 minutes. So there'll be 30 minutes, standard time for motion, extend that by 30 minutes. So in the grand total, there'll be 1 hour for motions.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And extend the length of the meeting a corresponding amount so that it...
Well, yeah, I don't have much choice if it's 10 past 12.
Yeah.
Second that, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Is that agreed by the Council as such to extend that? I think that was agreed. Thank you. Can I invite Councillor J. Elmer to move his motion, please? And the motion will require a seconder.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Jonathan Elmer speaking, I represent the Brandon Division. In partnership with 6 other councils, Durham County Council is currently negotiating the procurement of a new waste incinerator on Teesside, known as the TVERF. The incinerator will be enormously expensive to build and run. Here are a few key points I'd like you to consider when you decide how to vote on this motion. First of all, looking at feedstock and guaranteed minimum tonnage. The contract with Viridor ties the council into guaranteeing a minimum tonnage of 93,000 tonnes a year, regardless of whether or not the council actually has that much residual waste. Viridor will apply a financial penalty if the council don't provide sufficient waste, threatening recycling performance, pushing the council towards importing third-party waste and exposing the council to market risks, policy changes and the fight for feedstock for decades to come. Now looking at the inclusion of incineration in the UK Emissions Trading Scheme, the ETS. Officers have confirmed that the additional costs associated with the ETS, which will apply to incinerators in 2028, have not been factored into the contract costs for the council. As the council will be locked into a minimum tonnage, this means that the actual gate fee will be higher than currently projected. And this exposes the council to a substantive and undisclosed future financial risk. Now looking at the issue of contract monopoly. The North East councils will be locked into a 29-year contract and a predetermined gate fee. This means that should cheaper options emerge, either from existing incinerators or other methods for managing waste, the council will not be able to negotiate a better price. Normal market conditions will not apply here. Looking at regulatory and other risks, the proposed contract also includes a wide-ranging and unfavourable change in law provision. This means that the council and not the operator would have to pay for any potential future requirements for tighter emissions limits and carbon readiness, and pay for operational hazards such as exploding nitrous oxide canisters and associated downtime and repairs. These risks have been largely transferred to the council and are not fully guaranteed in the gate fee, meaning the council's overall liabilities could be significantly higher than currently anticipated. And the writing is already on the wall. The Waste Incineration Bill has just been tabled by Andrew Murrison MP and introduces a new incineration tax that, if successful, will pile more unplanned costs onto the council. Looking at the North East region's recycling rate, which can be doubled, The North East recycling rate in 23-24 was 31.4 over the region, the lowest regional rate in England, though Durham performed slightly better at 37%. There is potential to perform at 65%, double our present rate, and this has been achieved across Wales. If we were to achieve this performance in the North East, there will simply be no need for another incinerator, as existing capacity would suffice. Now, there are huge concerns about Viridor as our chosen operator as well. They've been found to be breaching emission standards. There's no independent monitoring of the site standards. At the Bedlington site in Surrey, the Environment Agency has dropped Viridor's performance rating from A to E, following the company's 916 breaches in 18 months. And most importantly, there are no situations where local people are happy living next to an incinerator. Most have expressed discontent, misery and poor health outcomes. And finally, there are realistic and less expensive alternatives. Instead of entering into this risky, unfavourable contract, and instead of leaving the council as a hostage to fortune, the council could and should position itself to take advantage of a cheaper, greener and proven alternatives, including the high-tech material recycling facilities, MRFs, like the one already operating in Coventry.
Councillor, you've got about 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you. This facility, known as the Sherborne MRF, is jointly owned by 8 councils. It processes around 50 tonnes per hour at around 1/6 of the projected cost of the facility we're about to buy. The optimal approach would be for Durham to work with fellow councils to jointly exit the current procurement in order to minimise termination costs. As a stopgap, Suez have made clear that they can accommodate any residential waste at their existing Haverton Hill incinerator, which Suez has confirmed are set to continue operating into the foreseeable future, potentially with addition of carbon capture and storage capability. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much for that. Thank you. This motion requires a seconder. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor.
Priscilla Elmer, also Councillor for the Brandon Division. I'm very pleased to second this motion, and I hope you'll be persuaded to vote in favour of it. The estimated costs for the development of the TVERF are running at around £500 million, to which Durham County Council is expected to contribute about 1/7, a minimum of £40 million. An unknown amount, but anticipated to be several millions of pounds, will already have been spent on project preparation. However, what concerns me, and should concern all of us, are the uncertain additional costs associated with the introduction in 2028 of the UK Emissions Trading Scheme. An analysis supported by Suez, one of the largest waste handling companies in the UK, published in September 25, estimates that the UK Emissions Trading Scheme will increase the cost per tonne of recycling by £48 when it is introduced in 2028, rising to around £130 per tonne in 2038. This scheme is so convoluted that it is hard to measure, but bear in mind that we would be promising to pay unspecified, unknown amounts to an operator which does not have the best track record of delivery, all for a project without demonstrated need. How can this be justified at a time when the Council hopes to maintain a cost-neutral position? In addition, we would be locked into this agreement for 30 years. If we do manage to turn around recycling rates, we could end up in the position where we have to incinerate recyclable materials or pay crippling penalty fees, as North Yorkshire County Council has found at Allerton site. We must ask, do we want to keep throwing good money after bad, or indeed sending it up in smoke? Large amounts of it at that. We'd be signing a blank cheque. We've talked a lot this morning, Councillor Husband with great passion, about the need for financial fiscal responsibility, and I don't believe that this project demonstrates that now. Things have changed since the project was first instigated. There is a Japanese saying, if you get on the wrong train, get off at the next station. The longer you stay on the train, the more expensive your return journey will be. I suggest to you all that we may, in this case, be on the wrong train, and I would encourage you all to vote in support of this motion so that Cabinet can direct Durham County Council to get off at the next station. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Very good. I call on Councillor Mark Wilkes.
Thank you, Chair. Like Councillor Elmer, I had reservations when presented with this as a Cabinet member. I'm sure that the previous Labour administration did. I'm sure that the current Reform administration does. But when you're presented with all of the information and you look at it over many months, you start to formulate in your mind certain things. This plant is being built in the best location for future carbon capture. It'll be more efficient than current plants. For example, nearly a third more efficient than Suez Teesside, which we currently use, with a far more restrictive environmental permit. So not doing this, as Councillor Elmer wants, will result in way more pollution and way less energy being produced from our waste. I think that's environmentally irresponsible. The Council's plan for the plant requires an increase in recycling rates from the current rate below 40% to 65%. So Councillor Elmer's premise of this restricting recycling is fundamentally flawed. The Council has a financial incentive to increase recycling rates, not just for environmental reasons, but because it's cheaper than incineration. And indeed, recycling rates will rise from April with the new food waste and commingling of recycling. If the Council doesn't proceed with this plan, the Council will continue to send waste to be incinerated. That incineration is in older, less efficient private sector incinerators, which are not built to be able to take carbon capture in the future, and at some point will be decommissioned or require significant ongoing maintenance and repair, ultimately at this Council and the taxpayers' cost. If our Council do not have an alternative, we'll end up tied into a private sector monopoly contracts at vastly higher cost to the Council, and the waste will still be being burnt for decades to come. Councillor Elmer's motion doesn't offer a single viable alternative to the disposal of the 35% of waste which would continue to be incinerated, whether with current providers or the TVERF. Even with an MRF, we'd still be sending a similar amount of waste to be burnt. That 35% is going to take a monumental international plan to tackle. We all want a circular economy, but it won't be achieved for years. No alternative proven scalable working technology is available, and even if it was, it'll take a decade for us to get to that point. In the meantime, without this plant, the Council costs will spiral out of control, having to pay private monopolies to continue to burn in more polluting plants and landing Council taxpayers with huge Council tax hikes. Councillor Elmer, your plan would leave us with the only option of cutting other services to pay for an increased monopoly cost. I would suggest we vote down this motion because it's economically and financially irresponsible.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kyle Genner.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start by actually thanking Councillor Elmer, because he and I have had some good dialogue on this and it's been done in good faith for the most part. I'd also like to thank Councillor Wilkes for his shrewd and well-considered analysis, and it's going to be no surprise again that I agree with him on a lot of the points he raised there. Now on to the motion. First, a quick correction. I don't know who read the motion as it was on the screen, but contrary to the claim that the motion, contrary to the claim in the motion that TVERF doesn't offer energy recovery, it does. In fact, it will recover enough energy to power 60,000 homes annually. With that in mind, it would be remiss of me not to point out that the clue is kind of in the name. It's quite literally called the Tees Valley Energy Recovery Facility. I do also note there was a point raised in the motion there that gas-fired power stations produce less carbon emissions per unit of electricity than TVERF. The inference I take from that, even if playfully, is that if electricity generation is the goal, then rather than building TVERF, then perhaps we should be building gas-fired power stations. I did expect to see some wild things in politics, but never did I imagine that a member of the Green Party would give me an argument for increasing the use of fossil fuels. It does have me wondering, Chair, whether Councillor Elmer might be secretly contemplating an unexpected defection to reform. Now on to the serious stuff. A great deal of good work has already gone into this project by our excellent officers, and indeed by some of those sat on the opposite side of this chamber in previous administrations. Genuinely hats off, because there was good work done on this. The truth is we have four options. Number one, stumble around in the dark and hope that some magic solution that doesn't yet exist suddenly appears. Number two, landfill. Councillor Elmer himself has suggested that this is far from desirable, both environmentally and economically. Number three, continue with our current arrangement with no guarantee of capacity, price or viability beyond 2032. And number four, continue pursuing the TVERF project. At this point, TVRF is by far the best option we have available to us.
1 minute.
And anybody who's looked at this seriously knows that to be the case. It's the best option we have for our councils and our taxpayers financially. It's the best option we have environmentally. It's the best option we have in terms of incentivising recycling. And it's the best option we have in future-proofing our councils against future legislative and technological opportunity and risk. Let's just be honest, this project has had 6 years of due diligence by 3 administrations in Durham, by 7 different councils, with hundreds upon hundreds of officers and councillors, and every conceivable variable considered. There have been countless questions in this chamber, countless questions in Environmental Scrutiny Committee, countless questions asked by this administration since taking control back in May, and countless questions asked through the independent reports we commissioned back in September. This project has been scrutinised up and down, inside out, and from every possible angle. And what's the meta-conclusion across all those institutions,
Thank you,
those
Councillor.
groups, and all those people? TVRF is the best way forward. I'm sure nobody will be surprised to hear
Thank
that
you,
I'll be
Councillor.
voting against this motion, and I'd urge all members across the chamber to do the same and vote this down. Thank you.
Councillor Husband.
Thank you, Chair. So Councillor Wilkes has obviously confirmed the previous Cabinet had reservations. So this is clearly it's a legacy issue, another fire, pardon the pun, that Reform have been expected to put out, a 6-year problem that we have found a solution with within 6 months. Moving on, so Councillor Elder at the last full council requested a meeting which we did entertain. We had our courtesy a sit down to discuss our position before making any final decision, before pulling out essentially. Now it is a live procurement exercise. I still want to kind of re-emphasise that point. But as previously communicated, we are late to the party on this one. Spades are actually in the ground, Councillor Elder, before our decision was made. We, being the only one of the LA7 to show any resistance, to challenge this, to pull out, we argued the business case to exit publicly and on many occasions. Litigation costs were explored, huge litigation costs. External reports engaged. The current deal, our current deal, was financially better. It looked favourable. It felt it was the right business case to actually exit and stay in our current facility. Until the 9th of October 2012, of course, when on the brink of a DCC exit, the business case changed. The deal we were expecting to sign way back in June was remodelled. £250 million reduction across the LA7, £73 million saving for DCC alone. So by exiting now with no business case and opening up the council to litigation with an existing deal that costs us more, suddenly Paul Darby will sadly be called into the awkward situation of reporting us for reckless financial decision making. We can't risk S114 action. We can't risk emergency measures. On the contrary, the circa £3 million saving per annum is the equivalent to 1% reduction in council tax or funding towards a U-turn on the council tax reduction scheme in 2029. Let's wait and see. Again, mid-term transformational plans, one of many, as we battle this horror Labour...
1 minute left.
Dear me, we're having words later, Mr. Rodders. Where was I? Again, mid-term transformational plans, one of many, as we battle this horror Labour government who have lost control with regards to both local government and local government financing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and sorry for the cutting you off. Sorry. Right, Councillor Elmer is the motion put forward. Do you want us to speak again?
Yes, Chair. I assume nobody else wants to speak on it. Just so I'd like to come back on a few points.
Chair. I didn't think.
Sorry.
Point of order. I didn't think you could speak twice on a motion. I thought it was once only.
It's a right to reply.
He has a right to reply.
Oh, sorry. I thought. Sorry.
Just sit there quiet, Councillor Quinn, please. Thank you. Councillor Elmer, please carry on.
Okay, I won't speak for long. And you know, presenting this motion, I was well aware that the entire council would be against me on it from the onset, except for my good wife, Councillor Priscilla Elmer. But let me do. I mean, this is a serious matter. I'm making light, but it is a serious matter. A few points I'd like to make. We're already incinerating a very large degree of recyclable waste. We incinerate something like 60% of our waste, 30% of which is recyclable. An MRF could lift us to 60% in terms of our recycling rates. Now, that's really significant because the cost of sending waste to incineration is something like 6 times the cost of recycling waste. So if you can make that sort of increase in recycling levels, it really does make a very, very dramatic saving. I have also, in my presentation, presented a very viable alternative option. Bear in mind that other councils across the country don't do this. They have alternative options in place. So they do exist. It's simply not the case to argue that there are no viable alternative options when there clearly is. Also, I'd make the point that the Newcastle, also part of this procurement exercise, their full council did actually vote to pull out of this. But it was overturned, the decision was overturned by their cabinet. Now, the cost of this incinerator are simply enormous, and they're likely to increase by an undisclosed amount due to the ETS and potentially other legislation that might come forwards. The council will be locked into a 29-year contract, and during this time will not be able to move to emerging cheaper options. The far, far cheaper option of increasing recycling provision and continuing use of the incinerator currently operated by Suez is still available to the councils. But the most important point I'd like to make to all of you here, and this really hasn't got that much airtime, I guess, incinerators have an appalling impact on the mental and physical health of local people. I know that a lot of councillors in this chamber have vehemently opposed incinerators that have been proposed for development near their area. They've really pushed back against them. We've had one near Chesterley Street, one in Newton Aycliffe, and we've all worked so hard to stop these polluting projects. But here we are, as a council, all getting behind an incinerator that all of these other ones are just dwarfed in comparison. This is a huge project. I'd like you to ask yourself the question, would you be happy if you were downwind of this incinerator? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Thanks very much.
So, Chair will now move to a vote on the motion as proposed by Councillor Elmer. It'll be 1 on your voting handsets to vote in favour of the motion, it'll be 2 to vote against the motion, and it will be 3 to abstain. As a reminder, if members do press the wrong button, if you press the right button, that will correct your vote. And the vote is open. We'll close the vote, Chair.
For the motion, we have 3. Against the motion, we have 74, with 1 abstention. So the motion fails, I'm afraid, Councillor Emler. Thank you. We now move on to the second motion. May I invite Councillor Chris Footwood to move his motion, please?
Thank you very much, Chairman and members. And thank you to the Council for allowing me to put this motion. During the interval that you called, Chair, I've been advised that the decisions made earlier in this meeting with regard to council tax reduction scheme incorporate the principles of my motion. So what I would like to do, Chair, if you'll allow, is to formally propose this motion, make a short statement in its favour and ask for it to be seconded, and then if an amendment is proposed, and I want to thank Councillor Lyons for the courtesy of in telling me verbally, but I want to see it in a motion. So if she would kindly propose a suitable amendment stating that the previous decision incorporates the principles of my motion, then I'll be quite happy to consider that. But I want this on the record. So just to make it clear, this motion does not refer to the assisted dying bill, which is currently being considered by the House of Lords. This motion is about the end-of-life care, which of course applies to every one of us. Sorry to remind you, colleagues, we all have to die sometime. My motion is concerned with two particular things: to seek support for the hospice movement and for us to do everything possible to make sure that everyone we are responsible for as a council receives the end-of-life care they surely deserve. Under the Care Act of 2014, we are charged with ensuring the personal dignity and treatment of the individual with respect. On a personal note, my late wife Frances and I were together for 40 years. We were a team, not only as life partners, but also in politics and business. She was Frances Foote, and when we married, she said she didn't want to be the second Mrs. Wood. And I didn't want to be the first Mr. Foote. But she's very politically astute, and she told me that if I did change my name by deed poll, which I did, that my name would then go higher up the ballot paper. So it seems to be still working. Sorry, I've made that point. But after 40 years together, a very close relationship, and this is a common thing with millions of people, we know this happens, Frances got cancer, and it was terminal, and sadly she died. But she spent her last few days in a hospice where she was kept comfortable, pain-free, and died in her sleep. Colleagues, isn't that what we would want for our loved ones, and indeed for ourselves, when the inevitable end comes? It might not be in a hospice. It could well be in hospital, or in a care home, or in our own home. But some people do not get the end-of-life care that they surely have a right to, perhaps because of lack of family support or sheer poverty. And colleagues, what I wanted to do in putting this motion some time ago, it's been postponed, as you know, Chair, I wanted to make sure that as a council, all the terminally ill people in our care get the end-of-life treatment that everyone deserves. And if we can, I urge you to support these principles, either as a council and support the hospice movement, either as a council or individually. I commend this motion to you and ask for your support. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Councillor. It's very good. The motion requires a seconder.
Thanks, Chair. I'm quite happy to second Councillor Footwood's motion. As you'll see, it's in three separate elements. I think Councillor Footwood might be quite unique in getting two parts of his motion through before a vote's taken, because the decision we made earlier today on the local council tax reduction scheme meets the first two paragraphs. So what remains, and I understand Chris wants to get this on record, I know it's very important to him personally, and it's very important to a lot of people across the county. We've met the challenge on the first two paragraphs, so I would suggest that we focus on the final paragraph, which is to encourage every member of the council to contribute to the Marie Curie Foundation and for cancer care. So I'm happy to formally second Councillor Footwood's motion, and I hope we can get some agreement across the board, Chairman. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Thanks very much. Councillor Nicola Lyons.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that we did cover that off in the local council tax reduction scheme. It's on page 104, paragraphs 295. And I agree regarding the household support fund. However, we are waiting for the new crisis resilience funding. So household support fund will be no more come next year. but I am looking at the new poverty strategy, so it's something that I am prepared to look into and consider when we write our new strategy. So I just wanted to thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you, Councillor.
Save time, Chair. If I understand what Councillor Lyons is saying, that she's going to incorporate those things in her amendment, then I'm, with the consent of my seconder, be quite prepared to withdraw the motion at this stage.
This is for obviously all the councillors. Are we happy to withdraw the councillor's motion because it'll be incorporated into? Are you happy with that? Yes. Good. Sorry, councillor.
Sorry, Chair. Is there an amended motion? Because that's what I thought Councillor Footwood meant.
Yeah.
So where is the amended motion? That's what he asked for. Maybe he's misunderstood. I understood that Councillor Lyons was moving an amendment to this motion, which he was happy to accept, and then withdraw this motion on that basis. But is that not the case?
I think between myself and the chair, what we understood was that Councillor Footwood was satisfied based on the response that Councillor Lyons gave to then withdraw the motion with the consent of the seconder, and obviously the procedure rules require the assent of the amendment, so there was no more amendment. No.
Does the council agree? Okay, thanks very much. Sorry about the confusion there. We now move on to the third motion. May I invite Councillor Tim McGuinness to move his motion, please?
Cheers, Chair. Thank you. Oh, there we go. 2 seconds. Apologies, I haven't had my coffee this morning. It is at this point a simple truth that our rural communities up and down the country are under attack. The inheritance tax disaster and the national insurance increases are just the latest measures in a long line of poorly thought out and poorly implemented policies. Policies that have hurt British farming. I'll therefore ask this council to recognise the huge contribution made by our local farmers, growers and the wider food and drink industry to our local economy, environment and rural communities. It is these guardians of the countryside who trim hedges, grit roads and grow our food. During the Second World War, those working in farming were exempt from conscription. Such was the importance of their duty to feed the nation. Now central government seems happy, no, determined to break the backs of our farming and rural communities. We cannot let farming go silently into the night. They cannot be allowed to vanish without a fight. Just another piece of British fabric burned at the altar of progress. As part of this motion, I ask that we end the unofficial war on meat and dairy products and return to a world of personal choice and common sense, a world where Durham produce is grown, reared and ultimately consumed right here in our county. By committing to using homegrown produce, particularly meat and dairy, wherever possible, while still accounting for cost and legal requirements, we can begin to do just that. If we can consider ways to encourage our residents to shop locally and take advantage of homegrown, affordable and nutritious food, we can boost our rural economy, ensuring farmers get a fair price for their produce. We can reduce food miles to our tables, buying locally and direct, reducing the need for long-distance imported foods. We can start to build a diet around high-quality food, improving the county's health. By investing in our farmers and local producers, we strengthen the Durham pound, creating the foundations of a circular economy and the first steps towards a more self-sufficient and sustainable county, a county where our farmers may one day be able to thrive. I began this speech by referencing the food security that helped our nation persevere during the war, and while I hope no such conflict is on the horizon, I'll have to put it down, I'm absolutely shaking here. Too much coffee. And while I hope no such conflict is on the horizon, increasing our food security within the county by protecting our farms, given the turmoil occurring internationally, should be as important as ever. Let the events in Europe and the shortages and price spikes created during COVID be a lesson we remember and safeguard against. So I say to you, my fellow councillors, support this motion, support our farmers, Join me in saying to central government, we will not stand idly by. We will do everything we can to support our farmers, farming and our rural communities, and a cherished part of British life. Thank you very much. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. This motion requires a seconder. Do we have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second it, Chair, and I reserve the right to speak.
Thank you. So, does anyone wish to speak? We've got Councillor Wilkes.
Thank you, Chair. I don't see any reason not to support this, given that we signed the County Durham Food Charter back in 2013, which pretty much covers off everything you've said.
Anything else, Councillor Wilkes? Are you just happy with that? Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this short. My division is Lower Teesdale, and I'm sure that Teesdale farmers and related rural food and hospitality businesses will welcome this initiative. At a time where food security and the rural economy is increasingly under threat from this government's draconian taxation and energy policies, any measures that we as a county council can reasonably take to encourage homegrown food production should be fully supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Croot.
Thank you, Chair. I was just about to make that very point. I don't see any reason why we can't support this motion. I think it's important that we do protect our farming communities because they are an integral part of the county. I think we could go further as members in, as just been said by Councillor Campbell, that we do everything we possibly can to protect viable food production land from overdevelopment. We see a lot of that. Those who were on planning committees will know there's been a hell of an uplift lately in planning applications for solar farms. No problem at all with solar, but when it's taken up valuable land that could be used for food production, then we need to do everything we possibly can to protect that land. There's just a couple of points. Will there be any impact here on other sectors in the food production area? Because sometimes it's difficult to protect one area without having unintended consequences elsewhere. And on top of that, will we need to amend any of our procurement rules as well? Other than that, I'm quite happy to support the motion, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Elmer.
Thank you, Chair. A few points I'd like to make on this as well. I also completely support the motion and the intention behind it. Start by saying that. Frustrated by the impact also that inheritance tax has had on the farming community, so I also agree on that perspective. But I want to talk very briefly on the comment made in relation to the unofficial war on meat and dairy. The big threats to our meat and dairy farmers actually come from the threats from cheap imports more than anything else, where meat and dairy is coming into our country from countries that don't have the same animal welfare laws in particular. Now, farmers in our country, they're proud of the fact that they farm to good animal welfare standards, and actually they want people from other countries to, adopt our standards. So it's really tough on them that our government, of course, is entering into trade agreements that are enabling the undercutting of markets in our country. That's the biggest impact on meat and dairy. And I know of this through talking to so many farmers across the country, actually, in my party role as well. I just want to make a final point on solar farms as well, because solar farms, more often than not, the vast majority do enable grazing within the panels. Now, I know I attended a site visit with actually Reform councillors earlier in the year to a farm where one of the farmers genuinely wanted to diversify into solar farms, and we asked the question of that farmer, will there still be grazing within the panels? His answer was yes, and that's generally the case. So I just want to sort of mention that because it's so often mentioned as a concern. But the vast majority of cases, solar farms don't stop meat and dairy farming. It's just a fact. So let's try and put that one to bed. But broadly, very much support this motion. Thank you for making it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor James Stevenson.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point I'd like to make from what Councillor Elmer said.
I know a lot of farmers, I've got farmers in my family, and you can't graze sheep under solar panels. It's an absolute falsity. The amount of muck every farmer has to spread in the field throughout the winter to make sure there's enough grass for grazing for the next year. I'd like to see Councillor Elmer's solar panels after a muck spread has been in the field for half a day. That's all I'd like to say on that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hope.
Thank you, Chair. Just to point out, Councillor Elmer was referencing the farmer, saying that he wanted to diversify into solar farms. However, the farmer, when I asked him a question of diversifying, he said diversification is what is crippling us farms. Now, what he did say and how he interpreted it is that these solar farms are a lifeline for them if, you know, everything goes against them as they are currently. So I think it's a bit of a falsity to say that solar farms are beneficial to farmers if we cannot support them in every other ways and means that we can, including the bringing in of imports. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stephen Gray.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just in point to Councillor Croot's comment about procurement. The answer is yes, UK procurement laws can be sort of shaped, and our local procurement strategy can be shaped to support local food and produce without breaking competition law. We can't legally say buy local, but we can set targets around sustainability, supply chains locally, SME involvement, etc., etc. And still stay completely compliant. Councils can also enter into sort of small contracts and lots with local suppliers. So yes, we can, and I think we should look at this as part of our procurement strategy going forward. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Husband.
Hello, just a brief one, Chair. So the 2013 Food Charter, a very dismissive response from Councillor Wilkes. A real insight into how little they actually care. And so is this fact, to be honest with you. So way back in June, we were all invited, all members, to attend Oxclose Farm. There were 31 councillors in attendance, of which 30 were Reform. We had one Green. Councillor Elder was in attendance. And Elmer, sorry.
Elmer.
My slip of the tongue. I do apologise. But the point is, no one else was there. And the farmer was distraught. Do you remember? He was in tears. He broke down in front of us all, fearful of his son's future, the likelihood of the next generation of farming not coming through, the forced sale of his farm pending. So why are farmers struggling more than ever? Tell you what I'm going to do, Councillor Wilkes. I'm going to say, don't worry, mate. We've got the 2013 Food Charter. This is about a refocus. It's about raising awareness. It's about farmers who are under real threat, who need our help in County Durham. We're talking about building a new cooperative style future of food hubs and farmers markets and all the engagement that goes with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Husband. Is there anybody else wishes to speak before I put it back to Councillor McGuinness?
Councillor Woodhouse can come in first.
Which one?
Councillor Woodhouse.
Councillor Woodhouse.
Cheers, Chair. Just going back to Councillor Elmer. Now, the only animal that can graze in solar panel is sheep. Now, I do believe lamb is a meat, so if they're grazing sheep there, surely that is a meat farmer. So I'm not quite sure where he's going along that comment. Now, unfortunately, Councillor Husband has stole my bit of thunder about the NFU visit. Unfortunately, most people out there could not attend, apart from Councillor Elmer. Now, farmers are under attack massively by the Labour government. This is the inheritance tax, which is hitting the news quite a lot. There's been fertiliser tax, milk reductions. That local farm in Oxclose Farm, come January, will be losing £10,000 a month. That is basically what he'd get for 10% of his land for solar panels. So you can see why farmers are going to solar panels, selling their land for houses. Now, as Councillor Husband said, that farmer broke down in tears. In 2023, there's 63 farmers committed suicide. The rates looking at this year is going to be double that. all because of the inheritance tax and the attack on the rural community. Farmers are getting more and more in poverty, so we need to bear that in mind. What the government should be looking at, the gang rapes, the small boats, build our economy, they're attacking our rural economy. Later on, either this year or next year, there's going to be consultations out on shotgun laws, hunting laws. Now, it's a Marmite subject, I know that, but look at the economy, look at County Durham's rural economy. All these bring in money to our economy. In the last year, 378 pubs closed across the UK. A lot of them are rural pubs. Our rural pubs are our economy. They are the heart of our areas.
1 minute, Councillor.
Farm and agricultural business, 6,365 closed this year. That is what we're facing. When farms close, they don't reopen again. They get sold on, the land gets sold on. So we need to start showing how we stand for our farmers. Sorry, I've just lost track where I'm going. By moving this motion, I believe it shows, as a council, we are together. It may be one of the only times we will stand together. And I do please urge, push this motion on, because it's just a start. Because our farmers, like a good soldier, needs to know the person standing next to him will go all the way with them and fight their cause and protect our area. And County Durham and our rural economy is a very important part of County Durham. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Thanks very much.
Chair, there's 15 minutes remaining in the time for motions. There's 2 people still registered to speak, and then Councillor McGuinness will have the opportunity to reply at the end. No further registrations will be accepted at this time.
I call Councillor Amanda Hopgood.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to move to the vote. We haven't heard anyone speak against the motion, so rather than go through more trying to political point score, can we just all agree that this is really a positive thing for this county?
How many? There's only 1 person left to speak. Well, since there's only 1 person, I think it would be right to let the councillor speak. Who is it? Councillor Rowney.
Hello, Chair. I'd just like to make a very simple point, and that is I do hope that the council and certainly planning will make it easier for farmers to convert derelict barns and byres into homes for their children so that they may continue to farm, especially in places in the west of the county, Teesdale and Weardale, where farmers have to jump through hoops to change empty and derelict buildings that are falling around, especially with the so-called housing crisis that we have, that may help young local farmers in those areas to actually get on the housing ladder and stay in the industry that not only their fathers have been doing for years, but their forefathers maybe for centuries. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hopgood had a good point. If all... But Councillor McGuinness, you do have a right to reply before anything else, before we go to any sort of vote.
Cheers, Chair. I will keep this very brief. Just thank you to all the members across the chamber who have signalled their support for the motion. It's much appreciated, and political point scoring generally seem to have been kept to a minimum. In answer to a few things, Mr. Wilkes, sorry, Councillor Wilkes, sorry. You know, it's about a statement of intent, this motion, and it's about an intent that I and the members, and hopefully the members on the other side as well, want to, you know, move heaven and earth to action things that will protect farming to the extent that we can. Obviously, our hands are very much tied behind our backs, but we intend to struggle as hard as we possibly can. So some thing from 2013, it doesn't really cut the mustard. I'd like to thank Councillor Elmer for his attendance at the farm, and excluding solar panel arguments, the procurement points raised have been raised with legal a check before this, so we will look to obviously not fall afoul of procurement law, and legal team at the council have said we haven't done that. So if we have nothing else, let's go to the vote. Thanks everyone for their
Thanks very much.
Chair, is a vote necessary? I think everybody's in agreement.
No, we're just talking about that. I don't think there's a vote necessary. Does everybody agree with the motion? Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, item 14, questions from members. We have one question for the meeting from Councillor Wilkes, which will be displayed on the screen. Can I invite Councillor Wilkes to ask this question, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The residence permit scheme, which operates in Durham, Chester Street and Bishop Auckland, generates around £128,000 of income a year and requires around £4,000 of additional income to break even next year, according to officers. This would require an increase of 3 to 4% in parking permit charges. That's 3 to 4%. So can the portfolio holder please explain why we're consulting on whacking residents with a 40% hike in charges, or between £12 and £24 for residents just to park outside their own homes?
Thanks very much. Could I call on Councillor McGuinness, Cabinet Portfolio Holder, to respond?
Cheers, Chair. I picked the wrong week to raise a motion, clearly. Thank you, Councillor Wilkes, for taking an interest in the valuable service we provide to protect our residents from commuter parking, allowing them to park their vehicles, lost my chain of thought, their vehicles and visitors near their own homes. Firstly, I would like to clarify that the figures you are quoting are the forecast for the scheme this financial year, 25 to 26. Those figures are based on reported figures up to Q2 and projected figures to the end of the year. The increase which you are referring to is a proposal in the mid-term financial plan for 26 to 27 and beyond. This will be the first increase to the permit charges since 2015, and taking into account various increases in costs coming forward to next year and the downtrend in income collected, it has become necessary to pass this on at a modest increase of 4 pence per day per permit to users of the scheme. Apologies. The cost drivers for the scheme is projected to be circa 153,000, with a projected income of circa 113,000, a deficit of circa 40,000. If residents feel the cost of the scheme outweighs the benefits received, there is a process where they can request the scheme to be removed. Equally, had previous administrations ensured costs aligned with inflation as standard, we would not be likely in this situation. And for clarity, the effect of historic inflation since 2015 would average to a 46% increase. So even under current proposals, which are proposals, increases are still below inflation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor, you may ask one more further question.
Thanks, Chair. What the portfolio holders just said is that there will actually still be a profit when you've increased these charges. The thing that I would like to point out is that whacking people with a 40% increase in 1 year is not realistic. And if you're going to increase charges, why won't you just factor them in over a number of years instead? Ultimately, there was a covenant with all of this. People took on board having one of these parking areas and were told the council will not make money from it. We're also supposed to be moving to an electronic system, which should save us money as well, which I presume you've included in those figures. But it is a concern.
Councillor, just one thing, Councillor, please. You're allowed one supplementary question, so can you frame it as a question?
So my question is, will he then consider spreading it over a longer period of time, because a 40% hit is just too much for people in 1 year?
Thank you.
Hi, Chair. As I say, it's a consultation. I'm happy to take away Mark Wilson's points and discuss them, and we'll discuss in due course if he's agreeable to do that.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to speak?
Chair?
Yes, Councillor.
I just want to make the point, as obviously Councillor for Cheshire Street North, I can again reiterate the point this is about a consultation.
Sorry, Chair, there's no questions on questions.
Sorry, you're right.
Point?
Please, no, Councillor Husband. Councillor Hopgood's right. No,
right, fair enough.
It's my mistake.
Yeah.
I'm afraid you're not allowed to do that. I'm sorry. Thank you, Councillor Hopgood. Clearly, we're missing Helen. Sorry about that, James. Colleagues, this concludes the business of the ordinary meeting of the Council. That is only a technical conclusion. We have to move on to an extraordinary meeting of the Council. And item 1 is a declaration of interest. Does any member wish to declare any interest in relation to any item of business on the agenda that's going to be spoken about now? Item 2 regards honorary aldermen and alderwomen. Can I invite the Deputy Monitoring Officer to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair, I think. Section 249 of the Local Government Act 1972 provides that a Principal Council may confer the title of Honorary Alderman or Honorary Alderwoman on persons who have, in the opinion of that Council, rendered eminent service to that Council as past members. Such an award must be made at a special meeting of the Council and requires a 2/3 majority. To ensure some consistency of the application of the term eminent service, the Council in 2017 resolved that the criteria should be interpreted as being 4 complete terms or 16 years service. This was reviewed in 2021 and again recently in September of this year by the Constitution Working Group. Paragraph 9 of the report contains details of the 20 people who, following the elections in May, are no longer councillors and meet the criteria I've just referenced. Of these 20 people, 4 of them had previously been bestowed the title of Honorary Alderman or Alderwoman by previous district, borough or city council. On the dissolution of these councils in 2009, the awards were legally transferred from those councils to the County Council, and therefore it does not need to be, and in fact cannot be, bestowed again. Honorary Aldermen and Alderwomen are customarily presented with a framed certificate and invited to attend civic events and ceremonies from time to time, but otherwise have no rights to participate in council business or receive allowances from the council. The recommendation, Chair, is that the council confer the title set out in the report to those councillors not already in receipt of the title, as listed. The recommendation says paragraph 8, but it should read paragraph 9, Chair, provided that they have indicated their willingness to accept it, which for the avoidance of doubt they all have. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Any questions? I understand we need a... Can we have a seconder for this, please? Mover, sorry.
Yes, I'll move and groove, Chair. The title of Honorary Alderman or Alderwoman is conferred on those who have rendered an eminent service to the Council as former county councillors. It's quite an achievement to serve the Council, the county and its residents for 4 terms or 16 years. It's remarkable that 20 out of the 94 councillors who retired or didn't return at the last election are eligible to be conferred the title. I'm very pleased to move the recommendation.
Can I have a seconder, please?
Chair, I'm happy to second the recommendation. I'd like to congratulate those eligible for the title of Honorary Alderman or Alderwoman on their service to their communities.
Thank you. Does any member have any questions regarding this? Does any member wish to speak on this report? Can I ask the Council to confer the title of Honorary Alderman and Alderwoman to those identified in the report? And finally, I'd like to wish you all a very happy Christmas and a prosperous new year. And once it's been confirmed that the broadcaster is switched off, I hope you enjoy your day. Thank you very much.
Chair. May I?
Sorry, Councillor Harrison.
It's a little bit off-piste, ladies and gentlemen, Chair, ladies and gentlemen, but as the Armed Forces champion for Durham, I would like to note and record our sadness and respect from Durham County Council after the announcement of the death of Lance Corporal George Hooley of the 2nd Battalion, the Parachute Regiment, who was killed in active service in Ukraine yesterday, alongside 4 Ukrainian colleagues. Our thoughts and prayers are with George's family and comrades and demonstrates the selfless commitment to world peace. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you.